Get some help, PJ Brown. Get some help. Get some help. You need help. You need professional help. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC Sao Paulo. We have Jailton Almeida taking on Derrick Lewis and a very good card. I'm really looking forward to this card. Really looking forward to be back. This card is pretty much stacked from top to bottom. I'm looking forward to every single fight. So, yeah, happy to be back. Weezy, how was your week off? And are you looking forward to UFC Sao Paulo?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to this card. This is a really fun card, some really great matchmaking. There's one fight right in the middle of this card that I think is like the best matchmaking fight of the night potential of a fight. And week off was great. You know, getting a week off after 3 weeks is always nice. You can really refresh yourself. You can really enjoy yourself. And also, I got a lot of behind the scenes stuff done as well, Brady. So that was really huge. Got caught up on a lot of stuff. Really enjoy the weeks off, but it makes me enjoy it even more when we come back. There's an old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Well, week away from the UFC, now I'm ready for some action, and we got a good card that we're coming back to. Some really interesting gambling angles. I already got a couple of bets, so I'm fired up to break it down today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. No bets for me yet, but there are a lot of spots that are sticking out, a lot of money lines sticking out as well. I do want to shout out the chat before we get started. We got Mushroom, first one in here. He was in here at 418. So shout out to Mushroom, first one in the building. Victor De Jesus, the second one in the building. We got There Will Be Blood. We got Snerius, Elijah One Dream. We got Flapjack. Weezy, you like that nickname? Flapjack.
Oh, yeah.
Flapjack's in the building. Yeah. Heck yeah. Get Rhythm. We got Iceland. Farts. We got it. Brown Belt Dave in the chat. We got Zayed in the chat. What is up? Zen Monkey, Nunya, and we got David as well. What is up, everybody? If you guys could, please do us a favor here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you guys are watching on the replay, leave a comment. Always like reading the comments there, especially the ones that aren't mean. And yeah, looking forward to this card here. One more thing. Check out pubsportsradio.com. Sign up for the weekly tournament. $100 the first each and every week. It is free to enter. It is free money. Be sure to check that out. All right, Weezy. I say we waste no time and get into it. And we're going to start with the first fight on the card. And by the way, we lost. What fight did we lose like recently? It's a fight
Onama? Yeah.
Which sucks. I actually taped that fight. Taped the fight. And then I see that it's not even on Tapology anymore. I'm like, what happened? Oh, it's off. So that sucked because I was really looking forward to that fight. And it was Onama that pulled out, so maybe we'll get a replacement there. But right now we have 13 fights, and we're going to start with Mark Diakese going against Caio Fernandez. We'll start with Diakese. He's 30 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Fernandez, he's 27 years old, 5'9" with a 72.5-inch reach. We got Fernandez 3 years younger. He's going to be 1 inch height disadvantage and a 1/2 inch of reach disadvantage there. So Fernandez, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We got Diakese, who is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He got club and subbed against Rafael Elves, won a decision against Slava Borshev. He won a decision against Damir Hadzovic, lost a decision against Michael Johnson, and then got headbutted and subbed against Joel Alvarez in his last fight there. And yeah, I thought Diakese was looking pretty good in that Alvarez fight. I thought he was definitely hanging in the striking in that first round. And in the second round, he started mixing in the takedowns. He was able to survive on the ground against a very good grappler, and Alvarez was able to kind of mind his P's and Q's down there, win some minutes, and then they went back to the feet, and there was kind of a head clash that the ref didn't see, hurt Diakese very bad, and then Alvarez kind of swarmed him and finished him shortly after. But yeah, Diakese's career has been pretty interesting. This guy's kind of turned into D1 Diakese the last couple fights, had 1 million takedowns against Borshev and Hadzovic, and I feel like he's probably going to come in here with that same game plan against Fernandez. I'm just not sure how I feel about Fernandez. He looks decent, especially early on. I really like his kicks. I think it was his last fight. He landed a nasty head kick, just killed the guy basically. But, you know, as the fight goes on, he seems to really, really slow down. I did not like how he looked in that decision loss. He looked very tired in the second round, very tired in the third round. His takedown defense looked non-existent. So I think it's a good match for Diakese. You know, Diakese's been in the UFC. He's fought the better guys. He has multiple paths here. I think he can absolutely hang in the striking. But I think, the takedowns, the offensive wrestling, the control, the cardio, I think that's where Diakese can absolutely, exploit this guy. So we'll talk about the line in a little bit. The line kind of confuses me a little bit because I actually do like Diakese here quite a bit. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think there's a lot of avenues for Diakese to have success here. Weezy, how do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, this kind of feels like a get right spot for Diakese. Not that it should have been, because he was doing really well in the fight against Alvarez. And yeah, Dan Movaheady, terrible referee, showing off why in that fight. He missed that headbutt by a mile. Diakese even tried to tell him about it. And then not only that, which was absolutely bizarre, because that was such a clear headbutt, and it was a headbutt to the temple that was completely there to be reviewed. So why didn't they review it? I mean, that fight absolutely should have been a no contest. That the fact that they actually let Alvarez have that win because of it, it should not read submission. It should read win referee incompetence. That's what that was for Alvarez, because it was pure referee incompetence. But just breaking down this fight here, like I said, it feels like a get right spot for Diakese, because Diakese is going to be the better striker here. Diakese is more experienced. He's taller. He's got a little bit of a reach advantage. He's got the high level experience advantage. Mark Diakese's got 14 UFC fights. Caio Fernandez has 9 pro fights with no UFC fights. And Diakese is the better wrestler. Where Caio is better is in his submission grappling. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he is a very aggressive submission grappler. So if Diakese does choose to take this dude down, he's got to be very careful with Caio off his back, because this guy is very aggressive, very opportunistic submission grappler. Like I said, a black belt. But Diakese does have more paths here. I think, especially after round 1, Diakese is going to be the much better striker. I think he's going to be a lot faster and a lot more powerful than this kid. And we forget that this guy's only 30. Diakese is only 30 years old. He's not an old man. He's just very experienced. He's been around the UFC for a long time, and we saw him come up as a very young man here. So, Diakese on paper is better everywhere. And if he doesn't like how it's going on the feet, I think that he could take Caio down whenever he wants to. So, yeah, this line feels very narrow, and I kind of feel like there may even be a little bit of recency bias in the line, in that Diakese has lost his last 2 fights, but the Alvarez fight, he was clearly winning that fight. So I kind of feel like this is a good spot for Diakese to go down here and get a win. But Fernandez is a little bit of an unknown, only 9 professional fights, not a lot of tape on this guy either, Brady. So, and he has shown some really nice power, some opportunistic power on the feet, as well as being a dangerous submission grappler. So maybe he could find a finish early in this fight. Very interesting way to start off this card, but I'm picking Diakese to win by decision, and I parlayed his money line with somebody else that we're going to talk about later on the card here. I do like this price on the Diakese line here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I feel like there's a lot of reasons to like him. I feel like if he does lose, it is probably like a club and sub situation where he gets himself caught in something. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons to like Diakese, but this money line's a little confusing to me. So he opened at minus 175. He went all the way to minus 200, and it's been nothing but love on Fernandez since then. Fernandez went from plus 170, and he's currently sitting at plus 111. Like, how low is this line going to get? But yeah, so I'll probably be betting Diakese. Not really sure at what number, but I think it's a good spot for him. I think as long as you mind his P's and Q's on the mat, like he typically does. Like, he's been subbed twice in the UFC, but they were both club and subs. One was the headbutt, and then the other was Alvarez club and subbing him as well. So, or Alves club and subbing him as well. So, yeah, so I like Diakese here as well. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 165. The under 2.5 plus 135. I feel like if Diakese wins this fight, it probably goes over. He's not really finishing anybody. And I think if Fernandez wins this fight, it probably goes under there. So I lean over. I lean Diakese, and I'll probably be betting it. Looks like best line out there for Diakese is minus 130 there.
You know what could be interesting is the under here, Brady, because Fernandez is very explosive, especially early in fights. But, dude, his conditioning is trash. Did you see that loss that he had? I think it was the Sardinia loss, and Sardinia's a wrestler. right? Sardinia is a guy who is actually a wrestler in Brazil or wherever it is that he's from. He's from South America somewhere. And he really wore out Fernandez, especially late in the fight with his wrestling. If that's Diakese and he wears out Fernandez and Fernandez gasses or has an adrenaline dump or nerves, this is a debut for him. And this guy has only fought nobodies. I mean, Diakese has 167 minutes of UFC octagon time when Caio Fernandez's entire pro career just spans 55 minutes and it's against all nobodies. So maybe an under here could be a decent way to look at it because we could see Diakese get a finish if this guy has nerves, if he gasses, or if he has a giant adrenaline dump in front of the Sao Paulo live crowd here in Brazil. So very interesting fight.
Yep, very interesting. I mean, if he's gassed out, then yeah, I could see a finish, but I don't know. DKC is not much of a finisher. I think his last finish came like 6 years ago. Is that head kick against Packlin, I think. But yeah, we shall see. I like the money line, though. I'm not going to get too cute with it, decision or inside the distance. I think the money line is probably solid here, but money's coming out on this Fernandez guy, so we'll see. Let's see. We got Lou Betcha in the chat. What is up, Lou Betcha? Glad to be back. Brady would submit himself to Jessica Andrade via rear naked choke, and he wouldn't wear a cup. I don't know what that even.
I mean, when would that ever happen? I mean,
I don't know what that even supposed to
mean.
Nobody's
making that fight. Jessica Andrade's not in Brady's weight class.
No, and I don't think I'll ever be in the same room as her. Unfortunately. Iceland farts liking the over -165. Yeah, where is that line going? It looks like some money is coming in on that under, I think. So yeah, we'll see. I have a strong take on it there. We got Marcus in the chat. What is up, Marcus? Hopefully you had a good week off there. And we got Dirty saying he's picking a Diakese, but too many questions for me to Bennett. There he goes. Yeah, we're curious to see where this line goes. There's not a ton of bettable lines on this card. It's another one of those cards where we have a ton of big favorites. Kind of feels like the what was the card 2 weeks ago? The Abu Dhabi card, the London card, the Paris card. It seems like a lot of these fights are kind of setup fights, but this is one of the more bettable fights on the card. So we'll see. Moving on to the next fight, we get Eduardo Mara going against Montserrat Conejo Ruiz. We got Mara. She is 29 years old, 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. We got Conejo, who is 30 years old, 5 foot with a 61-inch reach. We have Mara, who's 1 year younger, and a massive 6-inch height advantage and a massive 6-inch reach advantage. So Mara, she is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She is undefeated. She went on the Contender Series and got a first-round submission there. And then as far as Ruiz, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against Cheyenne Bays, won that fight by decision. That was the head and arm throw in all 3 rounds type fight. She gets knocked out by Lamush in the first round, and then knocked out by Jacqueline Amarim in the 3rd round. So, yeah, we have a massive favorite here in Mara. Like I said, on this card, we have a ton of big favorites. And by the looks of it, looks like she's even a bigger favorite. I taped this fight like yesterday, and she was like -400. Now she's -500. And I can't argue it too much. I'm just not really sure that Ruiz is UFC caliber. I'm not really sure what she's good at. Apparently, her base is wrestling. But I don't think she's the best striker. I don't think she's the best grappler. I don't think she's the best even wrestler. I'm not really sure what she's great at. She's really undersized for the division. She's 5 foot, 61-inch reach. She's going to be undersized, like really undersized in this matchup. This probably should be Mara all day. With that said, there are unknowns, a lot of unknowns about Mara. There's not a lot of footage of her out there. I think I was able to watch maybe 3 fights. But from what I have seen, she is very physically strong. She is able to get fights down to the mat. What I like about her in this fight, though, specifically, she has really good ground and pound. Jacqueline Amarim, what I noticed in the fight against Ruiz is she didn't have the best ground and pound. It was kind of like pitter-patter shots, but she was having success, but they didn't have a lot of pop on her, whereas Mara, she has very vicious ground and pound. She forces her opponents to turn over, and that's when she kind of finds a sub there. So, yeah, I think Mara probably dominates this fight, probably finishes this fight as well. Just not really sure what Ruiz is doing here. She made her debut against Bays. That was a long time ago. She took a big layoff. And actually she fought Lemos and then she took a big layoff, came back against Amarim and didn't look too great. So this should be Mara all day, every day, but you won't see me laying -500 on her. And I did like the under until I saw the price tag. -155 for the under 2.5. I think she does finish, but I'm not laying -155 on an under in a strawweight fight. And on top of that, I've been just throwing away, burning money on WMMA unders recently. So I'm glad they priced it here. That means I'm not going to play it, but Mara should absolutely smash in this spot. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking to play the under too until I saw the price of it, and then I bet the over because the price is absolutely ridiculous. Women's strawweight fights finished 3 out of 10 times, and they got this one priced like it's going to finish 7 out of 10 times. And they're saying that why? Because they think Eduardo Mora is going to finish Montserrat Ruiz because Amanda Lemos did. Because Amarim did late in the third round, who's a far more credentialed grappler than Eduardo Mora is. Mora's new to the sport. Mora's pro career has lasted 1 year and 6 months, you guys. 9 fights in 18 months for this young lady. So she's been very, very busy crushing a lot of Brazilian cans, and there's not even any video evidence that any of it, actually happened. One of the fights that we saw was an amateur fight, right, Brady? There's only 3 fights of tape, and one of them is an amateur fight where if you have to fast forward to the end to find out who's who, because I didn't know who was who because it was the first fight that I watched. And I'm like, all right, that one got her hand raised. It said that Mora won this fight, so I'm going to watch. And I'm not even sure that she won that fight. And her striking looked horrible. Now, this was amateur footage. This was before the pro footage, but there's no footage of Mora striking at all. We could even say that there's no footage of Mora. She goes in there, she shaves some can's ass, and then she gets out of there. And with Conejo, we know what she is. So this is why the line is minus 500, because you're like, okay, it's Conejo. What's she going to do? She's going to punch her way into the clinch. She's going to put your back up against the fence, and she's going to look for the head and arm throw until she gets it. And then once she gets it, she's probably going to keep you there for a while. And then she's going to be looking to lock up your right arm in between her legs and finish with that Kesagatame arm lock that she always goes for. And she can win a lot of minutes and run a lot of clock with that particular strategy. So we have to kind of see how Eduarda deals with that. But Eduarda is definitely a pure grappler. She's not a striker. She's going to go out there and look to actually finish fights on the mat. There's no evidence, she's got 3 knockouts, but I'm pretty sure they're all ground and pound. So she's going to get the fight to the ground. And like you said, Brady, she's heavy on top. She's got good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. She's got really mean ground and pound. But the thing is when you posture up and throw with as much power as Mora does on the ground, it's kind of hard to be heavy there too. And Montserrat does have that wrestling background. Could be an interesting fight. Montserrat could make this grimy. She could get you into the clinch. She could put your back up against the fence. She could hold you there, and she could potentially get you with that head and arm throw and work a lot of clock. So if you don't hit her hard early or get her back flat to the mat, you might have a really hard time winning minutes or even moments against her. So I could see this being a really grimy fight. But this line being where it is with literally no tape on Mora, that Janaína Silva that she beat on the Contender Series was 4-0, and she looked horrible. She looked absolutely horrible out there. So I don't know who she's beaten. I don't know why this line is minus 500. It seems ridiculous to me, but I'm not running to the window to bet Conejo either. I think Mora is the superior grappler, and this is a grappler versus grappler matchup. And Mora's younger, and she's 6 inches taller, and she's got a 6-inch reach advantage as well. So there's a lot of reasons to like her in this spot. She probably gets the job done in Brazil, but it's a debut, Brady. It's in front of a live crowd. We have a potential for nerves. We got a potential for an adrenaline dump, and we don't have any tape on her. So don't lay minus 500 on Eduarda Mora. Please don't do that. I think it's a very bad idea.
5 units to win 1?
Yeah, I just think it's a bad idea, Brady. I know that, when minus 500 women's favorites never lose, but,
I know.
it's still just a bad thing. So I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, she should win. Ruiz, she's just so undersized. She's so undersized. Her path to victory is head and arm throw. I don't know. I'm not sure what her path to victory is.
But at the same time, and clinch control. Don't forget the clinch control, Brady.
But she's so small. It's like,
I know.
It's like it's like she's a weight class smaller here. So I don't really like her
Yeah.
chances, but that's the reason why the line is where it's at there. Eisen likes the under at -155. I mean, I think it hits, but I mean, you are laying a lot. I mean, this is a strawweight fight at the end of the day. So it's a big overpayment. But if you're looking for a winner, I think it probably hits. We got Dixon in the chat. What is up, Dixon? We got Real Dope Prime in the chat. And it's an insane price to pay for more. It really is. I think it's more so like a fade on Ruiz, and I get it. She does not look that great, but like Weezy said, there's not a lot of footage out there on Mara. And Brown Belt Dave, Weezy is actually on the over, but Weezy, you got it at plus
145. I got 145. That's where it got bet up there for a little bit, and I was like, man, plus 145 for an over 2.5 is just insane, because if they go over 2.5 like 73% of the time or something like that. So yeah, it's and like we say, Mora's crap. We don't even have any evidence of who's she beaten. We don't even know what the girls look like. We don't even know what the wins looked like. So at least Conejo, we know she's got 13 fights, 150 minutes of pro cage time. She has been knocked out twice, but it's by Amanda Lemos and it's by Jacqueline Amorim. Those are girls that we know things about. That's a former LFA champion and somebody who's fought for the championship of the strawweight division here in the UFC. We don't know shit about Mora yet. So I did bet that over. I think it's still absolutely bettable at plus 125.
Yeah, I told you I'm actually looking to start betting some overs. This one I will not be, but there are some overs I'm looking at. I can't get there. I'm gonna stay away for this fight. But I think Mara should get it done. And even like Mara inside the distance is going to be like -150. It's just an easy pass for me. A fight to just take some notes there. All right, so we lost the Onama fight. We'll move on to a very intriguing fight here. We got Denise Gomes going against Angela Hill. We got Angela Hill, 38 years old, 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. We got Gomes, 23 years old, 5'2" with a 63-inch reach. And there's a lot of these fights on this card where we have some like an older fighter who's 40 years old, or around 40 years old, going against a much younger fighter. This is one of those fights. Gomes is going to be 15 years younger. She's going to have a 1-inch height disadvantage, and then she's going to have a 1-inch reach disadvantage. So Angela Hill, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. A decision loss to Amanda Lemos, very close fight. A decision loss to Verna Jandaroba. A decision win against Lupi Godinez and Emily Ducote, and then a decision loss against Mackenzie Dern. Just an absolute beatdown across 25 minutes. As far as Denise Gomes, she has 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Decision loss against Loma Luke Bunmi, but bounced back with 2 knockout wins against Verna Brazil in the second round and Yasmin Haregi in like the first 20 seconds of the fight. So yeah, this is a matchup where Angela Hill's a very popular dog this week. A lot of people are on her, and I totally get why. There's a lot of reasons to like Angela Hill. First off, she's much more experienced. She's fought the better competition by a mile. And these are typically the fights that Angela Hill wins. When she takes that step up, she can't quite get there. She'll lose to the Lamoshes, the Derns, but she'll beat the Ducotes. She'll beat the Godinez. She'll beat the Loma Luke Bunmi. She'll beat these lesser tiered fighters. And this is a fight that she should go out there and win. My one concern with Hill is this: she's 38 years old at this point. And Denise Gomes seems to be very, very dangerous in 23 and improving rapidly. But Angela Hill should probably be better everywhere. I think Angela Hill is going to be the minute winner in terms of the striking. I like the volume of the striking, the variety of Angela Hill. And I even think Angela Hill can go out there and win minutes in the grappling. Denise Gomes does not have good takedown defense. We saw Loma Luke Bunmi go out there and control her. So I think there's a lot of ways for Angela Hill to win this fight. But Gomes is much younger and much more dangerous, and that kind of scares me a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm going to bet this fight, but if I was, it would absolutely be on the dog of Angela Hill. But this money line's just been getting completely pounded brutally the past week and a half. I mean, everybody's on Angela Hill out there, and I think this line might even flip. So I'm not sure if I'll get on it. It feels super trappy to me, but there's a lot of reasons to like Angela Hill. But again, Denise Gomes, she could be improving. And she's super dangerous, and Hill is almost 40. So, Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one? I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this fight.
Yeah, you said that this feels like a trap, this Hill line. And, I was telling you earlier in the week, I was looking at it yesterday, plus 128, almost pulled the trigger on Angela Hill there, and it's back down to plus 115 now. So I'm going to stay away for now. I think Hill is better everywhere. I think she's the better striker. I think she's the better minute winner in the striking exchanges. I think she's the better wrestler. She's obviously faced and beaten and lost to the better brand of competition over her career. She's more experienced. She's taller. She's longer. She's got 20 more fights at the UFC level and 310 more minutes in the octagon. Over 5 hours of her life she's spent in that octagon more than Denise Gomez has, who's still only 23 years old, who's still kind of putting together her MMA game, because it's not pretty. But what is pretty, Denise Gomez has got something that very, very, very few strawweights have, and that's legitimate lights out power in her hands. She's got nasty calf kicks too, Brady, and she's got things that you can't teach. Stupid toughness, durability, the heart to never ever quit on herself. She's even got a tattoo on her throat that says overcome. You know, I mean, you're going to have a lot of things to overcome in life when you get throat tattoos at the age of 22, Brady. But she's gonna. I got confidence that she's going to be the person that does overcome those obstacles in life, and she's already overcome quite a few. I mean, like, this girl was not born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Okay, she's had a rough life, but she's made a lot of it already, and she's got a ton of power, a ton of heart, a ton of toughness. So that'll go a real long way for her. And yeah, I think Hill's the better minute winner everywhere, and she's got the experience to know when to use what skills. And she doesn't have to worry about Gomez's grappling here. Like, you know, you can get dropped by girls like Dern and Jandaroba because you're so worried about when are they going to enter on the takedowns. You know, your footwork is really a lot more worried about, instead of stopping striking, it's stopping their takedown entries. She doesn't have to worry about that with Gomez. I think she'll probably win the minutes at distance. My pick, Brady, is Angela Hill to win by decision. And if I could find something like that at like plus 200 or something, then I might get involved here, because I don't think she's finishing Gomez. But I think Gomez can win a decision here too by landing the more impactful shots, because we know that she's just got crazy power. But Angela Hill is stupid durable, as is Gomez. You know, I think one of the more likely scenario here is that the fight does go to decision, but you know, you still have to lay minus 300, I think, for the over 2.5. And for somebody that's as hittable as Gomez is, that's terrifying. And for somebody that has as much power as Gomez does, with the low calf kicks and with that big overhand right, I wouldn't want to test that over either. So I think I might be just staying away from this one, enjoying what's going to be a really good fight, you know, prospect versus veteran here.
Yeah, I think I might stay away as well. Angela Hill opened up plus 180. She's currently sitting at plus 115. Denise Gomes opened up minus 210. She's currently sitting at minus 135. Like you mentioned, the over is completely juiced. I would not lay minus 300 on over here. And yeah, I don't know. So I like Hill here, but I just have a weird, bad feeling about it. And plus, if this does go to decision, we got to worry about the judges as well. We are in Sao Paulo, so that's another thing that kind of scares me away as well. Yeah. Iceland farts like in the Gomes minus 135. I think if you keep waiting, you might get a better price there. Hill has never been KO'd, and that's kind of why I do like her here. She's never been KO'd in 28 fights, I think, and she's fought like very, very good fighters, very hard hitters as well. Yeah. We have Lemos hits pretty hard as well. That's for sure. Denise, I'm gonna give you the D. Gomes, she does, or she has been giving the D lately. That's for sure. And we got Dirty saying, I recently flipped to Gomes. I just don't like the amount of pop that Hill puts on her punches. Yeah, in terms of power, it's not even close. Hill is very durable. I'll give her that, but damn, Gomes has been showing some major pop. That is for sure. Her power is no joke. And Gomes minus 135 seems easy. She has been making it look easy, but if she made it look easy against Hill, I'd be very, very impressed. It wasn't too long ago she got like 30-27 against Loma Luke Bumi. So we'll see. All right, moving on to the next fight. We got Vitor Petrino going against Modestas Bukauskas. We got Petrino, 26 years old, 6'2", with a 77-inch reach. Bukauskas, 29 years old, 6'3", with a 78-inch reach. Petrino, 3 years younger, 1-inch height disadvantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Petrino is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Anton Turkalj, won that fight by decision. Submitted Marcin Prokhnio in the 3rd round. And then on the Contender Series, he had a first round, I think it was maybe a second round knockout actually, against Rodolfo Bellado there on the Contender Series. As far as Bukauskas, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. I think he went like 1-3 in the UFC, got cut, won a couple fights outside the UFC in the Cage Warriors, came back to the UFC, and then since then has rattled off 2 wins in a row against Tyson Pedro and then against Zach Palga. So we have a guy here in Petrino who I'm very high on. I really like this guy. He's 26 years old, very young, and he's evolving. I mean, this is a guy, you watch his fights outside the UFC, and what's he doing? He's knocking guys out. He's taking their heads off. This guy, Petrino, has a ton of power. But since coming into the UFC, in these 2 fights, he's a wrestler now, in a very good one. This guy went out there, took down Anton Turkalj multiple times, controlled him, won a decision. He ended up going out there, taking down Marcin Prachnio multiple times, winning by 3rd-round submission. So not only can he take your head off, but he can also take you down. So he's well-rounded, he's dangerous. And what I like about Petrino is his cardio solid. For a guy that's as built as he is, a guy that uses a ton of energy, this guy can go 3 rounds, no problem, and I like that. So I like Petrino a lot. And then on the flip side, we have Modestas Bukauskas, who's probably my least favorite fighter in the UFC. Man, this guy's so boring. Watching Modestas Bukauskas fights are just awful to watch. Like some of his Cage Warriors fights, they're terrible. He skirts on the outside. He's a light heavyweight point fighter. I mean, he's a good fighter. He's okay, but my goodness, his fights are just dreadful to watch. He doesn't do anything. But we'll see what he can do here. I like this fight for Petrino, though. I mean, on the feet, I think in terms of the minute winning, it's probably fairly competitive, but Petrino has power, whereas Bukauskas, he has some power, but I mean, the power advantage is in favor of Petrino. He's going to be having the much bigger moments. And then on top of that, I mean, Petrino has a path to victory here in terms of, getting the fight down to the mat. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like Petrino here. Modestas Bukauskas win. What does it look like? Probably him outpointing Petrino across 3 rounds. I just don't think Petrino is going to let that happen. So I like Petrino here. I like him quite a bit. He's a decent sized favorite, but Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, dude. I mean, like Bukauskas, you look at the numbers and they're uninspiring literally everywhere. And then you watch some of the performances and they're even less inspiring, And, I mean, like those fights in Cage Warriors against Chuck Campbell and Lee Chadwick, don't watch them. Please don't watch them. Like, you could see like things going through Campbell and Chadwick's minds in those fights. Like you could see like Chadwick in the 2nd round had lost so much interest in the fight. It looked like he was asking himself like, shit, did I lock the door before I left the house? Is the oven still on? Did I warm up some tater tots in the oven? And then he gets popped with a couple of jabs and he's like, oh shit, those are the only 2 strikes that are going to land this entire round. I just lost the round. And then he goes out there in the 3rd and he loses another round with 1 low leg kick that lands. And the announcers are talking about like their childhoods. They've completely lost interest in the fight.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what Bukauskas' style is. He's a point fighter. He doesn't really want to sit down on his punches, doesn't like getting hit at all. And he's low volume. Even here in the UFC, 50 minutes of distance striking time. That's a good sample size. He's throwing 9.23 attempts per minute. That's below average for a low average, division. And this is a guy who's got really good conditioning. If Bukauskas wanted to be a volume monster, he could. And he could have a lot more exciting fights. And he could push a style of fight where he's the one pressuring, where he's the one throwing the straighter punches and out-voluming his opponents because he's got that good conditioning. But he doesn't. He chooses to fight in a much less inspiring way. And if you're going to fight that way against Petrino, dude, it's just a matter of time before Petrino hits you. And Petrino has finished 6 of his 9 wins by KO. He's got a submission. But like that Turkalj fight, he landed probably 12 shots on Turkalj that would have taken out half the division. Any one of them, Turkalj was just stupid tough in that. And now I think even his chin is ruined. We saw Turkalj get knocked out in the 1st round against Tyson Pedro, right? After that Petrino fight when he absorbed a crazy amount of punishment and somehow kept going here. And like you said, Brady, he can mix in the wrestling now. This guy's gotten 11 takedowns in 2 UFC fights, and he's got over 51% control time for. And like you said, this young man is saying his prayers and taking his vitamins, because look at that physique. You don't get that unless you're praying to Jesus, daily and taking your Flintstone vitamins and, really kind of getting in that gym and working hard. There are no shortcuts to that kind of a body, Brady, right? So and the conditioning too. Now all of a sudden this guy can wrestle. This guy can go out there and get 8 takedowns and then finish a fight in the third round. You know, he shouldn't have the kind of conditioning for somebody that's the strength that he has. He shouldn't have the kind of conditioning that he has for somebody that hits as hard as he does. This young man's only 26 years old and he hasn't pissed hot for anything yet. So if whatever he's doing, it's working, and he's still only 26. And I mean, like, he should buzzsaw Bukauskas. Who are we crapping here? He's going to hit Bukauskas once and his head's going to go flying, man. And even if he doesn't, even if it gets to the point where he's kind of like getting a little bit pissed off by Bukauskas, maybe skirting around the outside, he can just disrespect him, run in and get in on the guy's hips, take him down, and then just beat him up every time he tries to get back to his feet. He's going to land big shots here. I mean, Bukauskas isn't bad. There's process to his game. He's well coached. He's got really good conditioning. He's got good size and speed for the division. But Petrino is just, I mean, he's got too much talent. He's got too much power. His conditioning is way better than it should be for a guy with that kind of muscle and with the guy that throws the kind of power that he does. So, I mean, it's hard not to see Petrino standing over Modestas Bukauskas' lifeless body at some point in this fight, first, second, or third round. I think he's going to finish him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We have Petrino opened up minus 221. He's now minus 223. Bukowski opened up plus 186. He's currently plus 188. And yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing with this fight yet, because I think Petrino can win this fight in so many different ways. I think he can knock him out. Obviously, I think that's kind of where I lean. But I can also see him winning a decision just by doing more, being more active, mixing in takedowns as well. So not sure I'm doing yet. Maybe Petrino as a potential parlay piece. Maybe I'll lay the money line here. I'm not quite sure. The over under set at 2.5 rounds. The under 2.5 is minus 143. The over 2.5 is plus 113. The only thing that would keep me off of the under is just because I'm not sure Bukauskas really has an interest in finishing anybody with his point fighting style. So any lean on the under or over under for you? Sounds like you kind of like the under.
Isn't it crazy? Bukauskas has got 9 knockouts. It's like, when did that happen? I had to go back to his old footage to be like, hey, I just want to be reminded that at some point in this guy's career, he was actually knocking some dudes out, and that, you know, he excited people enough that he got into the UFC. So I watched some of those. Yeah, I mean, Modestas has got some power. He's knocked 2 dudes out with those Travis Brown elbows. He got Mihalidis with that, and the fight right before the Mihalidis fight in Cage Warriors, he knocked his opponent out with that. So, yeah, I mean, he can be dangerous too. But Petrino showed a lot of durability in that Turkalj fight too. Showed a lot of, you know, he's never been finished, but he's never lost. So we don't know exactly how durable he's going to be. But Bukauskas has been finishing 4 or 5 losses. Yeah, maybe just a Petrino inside the distance bet. If you can get it at a much better price and the fight doesn't go, maybe that would be the better way to play it here. But I did parlay Petrino's money line with Diakise's money line to get me a plus 145 earlier in the week.
Yep, I like that parlay as well. The footage of Bukauskas KOs are on a VCR tape. Yeah, they were a while ago. Gosh, watching tape on Bukauskas is probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This guy's so boring. Yeah. We got Dixon saying, my number one rule in MMA betting, do not bet former Cage Warriors champions in the UFC. Yeah, they haven't been doing too great lately. Iceland liking the over 2.5 plus 115 for the over 1, or you're looking for the 1.5 though. I don't know. I think Petrino could potentially finish him if he wants to. All depends on the game plan there. Petrino's wins in the UFC haven't aged well. That is true. Maybe he didn't gas because of low competition, potentially, but you know, he's looked good, you know. But yeah, you're right. Turkalj went like 0-4 in the UFC. And Prochnow is obviously not that great. So this will probably be his best win, even though I'm not a big fan of Bukauskas.
Yeah, dude. And if you look at the volume, right? 13.87 distance strike attempts per minute. That's 3.96 more than the divisional average. And then you look at the grappling. He's attempting 7.84 takedowns, which is 4.1 more than the divisional average. And his opponents are attempting 8.36 against him. So Petrino's been in super high volume fights. So just because he's not necessarily fighting the best guys, if you get tired against Turkalj, he finishes him in the third round. He had his He had his back taken. He had Petrino in bad spots, but Petrino was definitely conditioned enough to get through them. So that was a big plus for me, in my opinion, even though he was sloppy.
Yeah, I like him, and like he's young, he's improving, and he's going against Modestas Bukauskas. I think he'll be all right here in this matchup. And we do have breaking news, by the way, Weezy, on Stat Diggers here. And I was checking out the Nisi Gomes Instagram, and I stumbled upon this.
Okay. Oh, it's she's from Brazil. The Brazilian blonde hair is plus EV. She can't do anything about the tattoo. That train has sailed, my friend. That's there for life. The hair can grow back, but yeah, I don't hate it at all. I don't hate it. I'm going to go on record saying that I don't hate it. What about you, though, dude?
Mixed feelings about it. I feel like, I don't know. Is this going to help her performance or hinder her performance? I guess it's yet to be seen. Just another reason I might want to stay away from this fight, though. It's just another thing to factor into the capping process.
We know here on Stat Diggers, we do take into account haircuts. We warned all you pricks about TJ Brown, and some of you still didn't listen. That guy needs help.
He needs help. Is there a bet on this card better than Sergey Spivak at plus money? There is plenty of bets because that fight's not on this card. It's on UFC 295. We'll be talking about that fight next week for 295 there. All right. So we will take this terrifying image off the screen and we will move on to the next fight. We have Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos going against Rinat Fakhretdinov. We got Dos Santos, 36 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. Fakhretdinov, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Fakhretdinov, 4 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. We got Dos Santos. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout loss against the Leech, a decision win against Alexei Konchenko, a decision loss against Muslim Salikov, a decision win against Benoit Saint-Denis, and then a decision win against Abubakar Nurmagomedov. As far as Rinat Fakhretdinov, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Andreas Michailidis, won that fight by decision, took Brian Battle 15 minutes, dominated that fight, and then beat Kevin Lee within the first 60 seconds. So I was kind of like, I don't know. I didn't know how I felt about Fakhretdinov. This is a guy that seemed to have a pretty padded record outside the UFC. Good-looking record on paper, but had not fought the best opponents. But came into the UFC and has just looked completely dominant. I mean, this guy, I think Fakhretdinov is probably the real deal. The win against Andreas Michailidis, it doesn't tell us much. I think Michailidis is cut now. The win against Brian Battle, I think, is aging very well. Went out there, dominated Brian Battle, hurt him in multiple times, and controlled him for almost 15 minutes of the fight. And then the submission win against Kevin Lee was really good. Fakhretdinov shows that he has a lot of power on the feet, and then he also has a little bit of a submission game as well. But what I like most about Fakhretdinov is his wrestling's really good. His control's really good. He can take you down. He can control you. He's content to just go out there and win minutes like we saw in the Michailidis fight and the Brian Battle fight. So, yeah, in this fight, I think he can definitely hang in the striking. I think in terms of power, it's in favor of Fakhretdinov. But I also think that Fakhretdinov can go out there and mix in takedowns when he wants to. If he wants to steal off a round, if he wants to win minutes on the ground, I think he'll be able to do so even against a black belt and Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. So, yeah, I like Fakhretdinov here a lot. And I'm not sure what the line is, but I'm guessing he's a pretty decent-sized favorite. Yeah, minus 325 for Fakhretdinov, but I think he has multiple avenues to win this fight. And like I said, I do think he's the real deal here, even though the wins aren't the best. But like I said, the Brian Battle win's pretty solid, and the Lee win's pretty solid as well. But this will be another really solid win if he gets it done.
Yeah. Rinat Fakhretdinov has been pissing me off since day one, Brady. I'll tell you something, man. I had a max bet, 5-unit bet on the under 2.5 rounds in the Michailidis Fakhretdinov fight. Yeah. It was minus 170 everywhere else. I got it at minus 115 on Caesars. I'm like, I'm hitting this for 5 units, and I can hedge out if I want to. And I would have been able to, but I was like, both of these guys had been cutting down to 170 pounds for the first time in their career. Michailidis and Fakhretdinov. Fakhretdinov has got a ton of power on the feet. Michailidis has got about 4 minutes of cardio. I'm like, dude, this fight is finishing for sure. And Fakhretdinov went in with something like a 90% finish rate going into that fight. So long story short, I lose the max bet, and I'm like, oh my God, dude, if you can't finish Andreas Mihalidis, you're a bum. You stink. So then I faded him against Brian Battle, saying that, like, now that he's fighting a real fighter here, I think Battle is going to be able to stop enough takedowns to win this fight. So he looked incredible there, but he didn't get the finish, but he did drop him once. And then I shorted him again against Kevin Lee, but I don't think I bet on Lee. But what I did do is I said, all right, Lee might be washed up, but Fakhretdinov couldn't finish a glass of water at this level. So I bet the over 2.5 rounds. I believe I parlayed it too. And then he gets a finish in the first 60 seconds. So I've been just getting my ass shaved betting on Rinat Fakhretdinov fights. But up until this point now, when you lose a bet on a fighter or his fights, you learn a lot about their fights. Now I've learned what I need to know about this guy. He's got incredible wrestling, very explosive on his takedown entries. This guy gets his hands clasped on pretty much every double leg entry that he goes in on. He gets that takedown. And once he gets you there, man, he is constantly using his head as a third appendage. He's always getting a wrist. He's turning corners. He's putting you on your back, and he's keeping you there. And then he lands heavy shots. And on the feet, dude, this guy's right hand, he's got a brick for a right hand. He just drops dudes. Eric Spicely, prior to the UFC, he knocked him out so bad, dude. That guy was dreaming for about a minute and a half after that knockout. And he's done it to a few other guys. He's also caught dudes in this guillotine before that he caught Kevin Lee in. He's got great front chokes. He's got incredible wrestling. He's got the cardio to do it for a full 3 rounds. And when you're on the feet and you're worried about those takedowns, he can land that big right hand to finish you. So he's got a very complete MMA game. And this is no joke of an opponent in Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. This guy's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Cristiano Marcelo. And Cristiano Marcelo is a 4th degree black belt under Rickson Gracie, maybe the most coveted black belt that there is in the game, So Zaleski dos Santos is powerful. He's well tested. He's fast. He's got really flashy kicks from the outside that he might not want to be using against somebody that's as good a wrestler as Fakhretdinov. So if you're betting that Zaleski dos Santos side at the price that it's at, I get it. He's the better striker. He's fought the better brand of competition. But this guy Fakhretdinov just appears to be the real deal. And the power on the feet is what really kind of has me saying that this guy, you just see nothing but green in all those stats. Look at that. 67% distance striking defense, a crazy 60% distance striking accuracy, 2 knockdowns in only 29 distance strikes landed. That's 6.9%. And then you look at the grappling numbers, 63% takedown accuracy, 5.82 takedowns per 15 minutes, 89% control time for. So if you're going to fight Rinat Fakhretdinov, you got 11% of the fight to hurt this guy, because the other 89%, your back's going to be against the cage or on the mat. And that 11% that you are standing at distance striking range, you not only have to worry about the entries on the takedowns, but you have to worry about the overhand right. I like Fakhretdinov here. I think he gets the job done. Might want to go back to the Fakhretdinov couldn't finish a glass of water narrative here and pick him by decision to get some value, but then he'll probably knock him out in the first round. So, yeah, I think I'm going to be learning from my mistakes and just not betting on this fight. But I like Rinat here to get the job done.
Yep, me too. And I'm not touching this fight whatsoever. Yeah, minus 325 for Fakhretdinov. And we have the over 2.5 minus 105. The under 2.5 is minus 125. I'm not touching the time. The time props make no sense. I mean, how does he not finish Andreas Michailidis? I mean, Michailidis has 2 minutes of cardio. He was finished in all of his losses prior to that. How do you not finish Andreas Michailidis? And then he goes out there and finishes Lee in 60 seconds. Like, the time props make no sense whatsoever. So I'm not touching this fight, but I think Fakhretdinov goes out there In wins, Fakrina minus 325 is ridiculous. Yeah, he's getting a lot of respect. I mean, going out there and doing that to Kevin Lee is no joke, even though Kevin Lee probably way past his prime at this point. Justin saying, I don't think he'll be plus 105 next week. Sometimes you need to bet next weekend and not throw money at crap. I think he's talking about Pavlovich. You haven't taped that fight yet. Iceland saying take the over. I do lean over as well, but like I said, this guy Fakrina makes no sense whatsoever. Falk is Falked. Dos Santos by KO. I think Fakrinev's only loss was by decision, right?
Yeah, it's one, and I don't even know who the hell beat him. It was so long ago. I have no idea who it was, but it was by decision. Yes.
All right. So yeah, I don't know how Zaleski wins. Maybe I don't know actually, but yeah, give me Fakrina, but I don't think I'm touching this fight. All right. Move on to the next fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. We got Victor Hugo going against Daniel Marcos. We got Victor Hugo, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 71-inch reach. Daniel Marcos, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach. We got a same age there, same height there. Marcos with a 2-inch height disadvantage. Victor Hugo, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He had a contender series win, second round submission, knee bar, I believe, in his last fight. I believe that was week 9 of the contender series. And then Daniel Marcos, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, undefeated, 15-0. Made his debut against Simon Oliveira, won that fight by knockout, and then won a split decision against Davey Grant. Very close fight there. Really could have went either way. And yeah, I remember taping Victor Hugo for the contender series, and I thought it was hilarious. So I saw his nickname. His nickname is Striker. So I go into tape thinking I'm going to see a really good striker here. And I watched pretty much all his fights. I saw like no striking whatsoever. And every single fight, Victor Hugo's shooting a takedown within like the first 10 seconds. And my goodness, Victor Hugo's grappling is incredible. This guy's grappling's no joke. He can get heel hooks, knee bars. I mean, this guy's grappling is very good. And we saw that on the contender series. And although his nickname is Striker, I mean, he's shooting takedowns relentlessly. I think in the contender series, he had to have got like 3, 4, 5 takedowns in that fight. And it seems almost as if he's kind of forcing the takedowns a little bit too much. And like I said, I haven't really seen much of his striking. So I think Daniel Marcos is going to have to treat the ground like lava here. I mean, if Victor Hugo is able to take down Daniel Marcos, it could be game over right then and there. Victor Hugo's ground game is no joke. But on the feet, I do like the striking of Marcos quite a bit. I like the volume. I like the variety. I like how he mixes it up to the body as well. And what we did see in the contender series fight with Hugo is he was starting to get very tired. He was starting to slow down. You're going to slow down with, shooting, 10 takedowns in a round, right? And we saw in the second round, he was starting to get tired, but was able to get that knee bar. If Daniel Marcos is able to stuff takedowns here, if he gets taken down, get back up, mix it up to the body, I think he can really wear down Victor Hugo here and get a late stoppage. But if this fight hits the mat and you're laying minus 230 on Daniel Marcos, you are going to be sweating. So I think I do lean towards Marcos, but Victor Hugo, this guy's ground game is legit. So Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, these leg lock guys, it's hard to know what to think because so many times at the UFC level, you'll see guys roll for leg locks, especially when it's what they're going to do, and they wind up getting their face pounded through the mat. I mean, whether you were expecting it or not, that's what happened in the Mendoza versus Manus fight. We saw it happen in the Blackshear fight. Who did he pound out? Not too long ago, somebody was just going for leg locks on Blackshear, and he absolutely destroyed them because of that. And we've seen it over and over and over again. There are very few guys. I think even Puelli's the last time that he lost, he just wasn't Hooker. Hooker just destroyed him when he was rolling for those leg locks and beat him up on the feet. So I worry about that. But this guy, Hugo, like you said, he's going to push a style against the guy in Marcos who's got 8 wins to the KO, 7 wins to the knockout, and 0 wins to the submission. So when you see somebody with 15 fights, 15 wins, and no submissions, it's kind of like that, lights that comes through the skylight and hits you right in the face. Like, maybe I should grapple this guy, right? So with Victor Hugo, you got a guy who's got a 28 fight pro career. This guy's only 30 years old, yet he's been fighting for 12 years. So this guy turned pro at the age of 18. He's got 28 professional fights, 10 wins by submission, 7 wins by knockout, and 7 wins by decision. Brady, he's 7-1 in decisions. So he's not just going out there and finishing guys. he's actually winning 3 and 5 round fights by winning minutes with that grappling as well. So very interesting spot here. Was Hugo a short notice guy on Dana White's Contender Series, or was he the one that was originally booked for that fight? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure it was original matchup.
Okay, but either way, I think that Hugo's very live here, but I think the way that I would bet it is Hugo by submission. You know, I mean, you kind of feel like if he's going to get the job done here against Daniel Marcos, it's going to be a first or a second round submission because Marcos has got great striking and he's got really good takedown defense too. So I could see either one of these guys getting a finish. Hugo early, Marcos early or late if he lands big shots. But I kind of like violence here. And I forgot what the official prediction that I made was when I wrote this fight up here, but I think my favorite bet for this fight would be Victor Hugo by submission at plus 250, plus 300 or better.
Yep, that's certainly how he probably wins this fight, and it's probably early as well. I mean, I was looking through Hugo's record. He has like so many different submissions. He has arm bars, rear naked chokes, triangle chokes, heel hooks, knee bar. I mean, you name any submission you can think of. This guy has. I mean, this guy's ground game's incredible. So if he is able to take down Marcos and early on, I mean, that could be a wrap right there. So, but as the fight goes on, I do think it heavily favors a guy like Marcos. I think it could look a lot like the Simon Oliveira fight where Oliveira was trying to get takedowns. He couldn't get the takedowns. He started tiring out, and Marcos was kind of punishing him to the body and eventually stopping there. I feel like it looked like that. And I do like violence as well. The under 2.5 is currently sitting at minus 150. Striker versus grappler matchup. Marcos is going to have an advantage on the feet. Hugo Silva is a very good grappler. I think violence at minus 150 makes some sense here to me.
Yeah, I agree with you too. Violence is probably the best look in terms of the time props here. Hugo by submission, Marcos by KO. I could see, because this really is a striker versus grappler matchup, and you got a guy making his debut. Could be the nerves, live crowd, a lot of things leading me to believe that this one could finish inside the distance. So yeah, I think that's a sharp play for this one as well. And also something to mention. You don't have to be the best wrestler when you're like a submission grappler, right? You could just throw a bunch of kicks, wait for somebody to take you down. Or, if you're a leg lock guy, you could do what Hugo did in the Dana White Contender Series fight. He went on a single leg, but didn't even try to finish it. He just pulled the guy right on top of him. And then there you go. You got the guy's foot right underneath your armpit. Now you just fall back into the 50-50 and you start playing footsie. And Hugo loves doing that. So he could find Marcos in some trouble here.
Yep, absolutely. We got Danielle in the chat saying, let's smash the bookies. That is always the goal. Victor's regional competition level sucks. That is very true. Yep. And how did they give Daniel Marcos the win against Grant according to the number? Yeah, I mean, I thought Grant probably did enough to win, but that was a very, very close fight whatsoever. And then we got Iceland Far saying, take the over 1.5. I will not be touching an over in this fight. I'll tell you that. I kind of like the under, though. All right, move on. In the next fight, we have probably my favorite fight of the card. I think this has potential to be absolute fight of the night here. We have Elvis Brener going against Esteban Ribovics. We got Brener, 26 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Ribovics, 27 years old, 5'10" with a 69-inch reach. Brener 1 year younger, same height, and it's going to be Brener with a 3-inch reach advantage. Elvis Brener is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Ibarra Tuhugov, won a very close decision there, and then he knocked out Guram Kudutaladze in the 3rd round, pulling off a massive upset, probably one of the bigger upsets of the year. Esteban Ribovics, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, had a Contender Series win against Thomas Paul, knocked him out in the 1st round. He lost a decision against Loik Roidzabov, and then he beat Kamela Kirk by decision there. So yeah, Elvis Brener, this is a guy that was a massive favorite in his debut. I think Tuhugov was like minus 300, minus 350. Guram Kudutaladze was minus 700, minus 800. And now Elvis Brener's the favorite, getting some respect here. Great performance in the Guram fight. He took some damage early in that fight, but Guram kind of broke in that fight. We saw Guram look very tired at the end of the 1st round. I think that fight was somewhat of a short notice fight, and Elvis Brener showed that he absolutely has that dog in him. This is a very interesting matchup to me because you take a look at Esteban Ribovics. He's a very good striker. This guy has a ton of volume, a ton of power, a ton of knockouts. And what everybody tries to do when they face Esteban Ribovics, pretty much everybody, take this guy down. and they have a ton of success doing so. Esteban Ribovics has horrible takedown defense. Loic Radzhabov took this guy down 11 times. Camilla Kirk took him down a bunch of times, and even outside the UFC, he's getting taken down a bunch of times. So he has the worst takedown defense, but with that said, he has some of the best, get-up game I've ever seen in the UFC. And if this guy gets taken down, he does a really good job at getting right back up. So, yeah, I feel like we have a really close fight on our hands. I feel like this fight is primarily going to play out on the feet. I feel like Elvis Brener could go for takedowns and probably will go for takedowns, but I don't really see him holding down Ribovics. And I feel like these guys are going to stand and strike for 15 minutes. And like I said, I feel like we have a potential fight of the night on our hands. So I think it's a razor close fight. I feel like this fight can even go to decision as well. I feel like it's going to be one of those fights that's going to be an all-out war where these guys just stand and bang and nobody goes down, because both these guys are just next level tough and both these guys are dogs. So, I think I slightly lean towards Ribovics just because, for one, he is the dog, and for two, I don't really picture Elvis Brener going out there and shooting 20 takedowns like Radzhabov did. He's not going to shoot 10 takedowns like Kirk did. I think Brenner's going to make this a dog fight, and I think that's going to give Ribovics a lot of opportunities here on the feet. So very close fight, Weezy. In my opinion, probably the closest fight on the card. What are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, I think this one is like, that makes me want to give a standing ovation to the matchmakers, because neither one of these guys likes to take a backward step. Both of these guys are stupid durable. Both of these guys got crazy chin, crazy heart. Neither one of these guys is gonna quit. I don't think either one of these guys is going to shoot a bunch of takedowns either. And I think that if they do, they'll probably get them, and it'll probably be up and down, So I think you're going to see a lot of volume on the feet. These guys are going to meet in the middle. I don't think either one of these guys is going to be taking a lot of backward steps. They're going to be in that pocket. And if Elvis isn't careful, you don't want to let Esteban Ribovics into the pocket with you, because you're never just going to see one or two shots. The guy puts together 5-6 punch combinations every time he's in that pocket. And when he starts ripping to the body and he gets underneath that elbow of yours, those shots land heavy. And I think Brener even is really good at going to the body as well. I think the shots that really hurt Guram before the headshot that knocked him out, before the headshot that kind of like just flipped the switch off for Guram, where he kind of looked like Burgos when Barbosa knocked out Burgos, and like Burgos got hit, and then the body, he was telling his brain, no, stay up, and the brain was like, fuck you, I'm leaving, and then he just kind of crawled to the ground. That's what happened to Guram in the third round against Brener. But make no mistake about it, Guram almost finished Brener at the end of the first. Guram had Brener in a ton of bad spots in the second, and Guram had Brener in bad spots in the third. Guram was winning that fight. Brener just wouldn't fuck off and wouldn't die. And what happened? He got that late finish because there's no quit in him, because he just, he's really durable, because you can hit the guy over and over and over again, and he's just going to keep coming forward. So this fight is just going to be a war of attrition. But I see more accuracy from Ribovics. I see a lot more volume from Ribovics, and I like the body work from Ribovics, and I don't think either one is going to quit. So I think it's going to be about who does more, right? Because I think they're both going to be landing big shots. But what I like about Brener, he kind of reminds me of Charles Oliveira a little bit, because it's not just the blonde hair and the shoot box style, but when he throws, because Brener doesn't care if you take Brener down. He's fine with it, dude. He's got 11 wins by submission. Dude, I counted the submissions, Brady. There's like 7 arm bars and triangles, 6 arm bars, 1 triangle. He's got a guillotine in there. And then he's got a he's got a gilly, and then he's got 3 rear naked chokes. So most of Brenner's submissions are coming from his back. So this guy is a guy who when he's on the feet, he may not be very low volume, but everything that he's throwing is with really bad intentions, because he doesn't really care if you take him down, because once he's on his back, he'll be working for that triangle armbar series, and he gets it a lot. I think his first 4 or 5 wins came by armbars. So very interesting stylistic matchup. I think if Ribovics tries to keep it standing and gets in that pocket, and I don't think Brener is going to be backing up that much, so I think Ribovics is going to find his way into the pocket. I think he's going to win this fight and win it by decision in just an absolute bloodbath of a war that has the crowd standing up and cheering. And by the way, his hometown guy, Sao Paulo kid.
I missed the last part you cut out. What'd you say for the last part?
Oh, Elves Brener, Sao Paulo, born and raised. So he is a hometown fighter here. He's going to be one of those guys that the crowd is going. Now, the crowd will be going bonkers for everybody that's Brazilian. Yes. But Brener will be one of the guys that the crowd is loudest for, not just because he's the hometown guy, Brady, but because this fight is going to be awesome. And guess what? The Brazilians, for some reason, don't seem to care for the Argentinians.
For some reason.
You know? Yeah, for some reason. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, they've only got a little bit of a border that they share. They had to put Uruguay and Paraguay in between them for the rest of it. You know, they don't like each other. This is Argentina versus Brazil, and Brener is the hometown guy. That's an interesting wrinkle to this fight.
Yep, it is an interesting wrinkle. I think there's a lot of recency bias here. I mean, Brener was just plus 500 against Guram. He was plus 300 against what's his face to Hugov.
Guram. Oh yeah, him too. Yeah,
he's a big dog there, and now he's a minus 150 favorite. It doesn't make a ton of sense. I feel like this, at the very least, should be like a straight pick 'em. I see this being a very close and competitive fight, so I'll probably be betting Ribovics here. I'm not sure where this line's going to go. And then one thing to mention for those Brener backers out there, Brener is not rocking the blonde hair this time around.
Yeah, but these shootbox guys, they've got like somebody that can dye your hair in 10 minutes in the gym. Yeah. You know, I think they actually have a full-time guy that's just there dyeing people's hairs on fight week, and he's going to be at home, so that could be the case. We'll have to see, but I think he'll be rocking it.
Something to look out for sure. But it looks like he's rocking the black hair. I think that is. It's hard to tell. His hairline is not really.
Yeah, it's feeling him just a little bit, but yeah, he's black hair. He's got that black hair for sure.
Yep,
looking good. God, he looks in good shape.
Looks really good for sure. This is probably one of the weirder comments I've ever seen. Ribovics has the prettier eyes.
He has those Argentinian blue eyes, Brady. I think actually, Dixon, it's not a dumb comment. I think it's spot on, actually. I think he does have the prettier eyes. You know, like Brenner's got those Vanderlei Silva eyes, man. You know, just the axe murderer eyes. You know, Ribovics looks like, you know, the kind of, if you had a daughter, you know, the kind of guy that you'd want to see her bring home, you know.
Something like that, I guess. Is 4 months enough time for Brener after that damage? He took a lot of damage in that Guram fight. He was like, his face was bloody. His blonde hair was dyed red. That cut could open again. Yeah, that was only 4 months ago, right? That was not too long ago.
Yeah, that was a really good fight against Guram, man. And like half of that blonde hair was dyed red. It was crazy. That's why I was saying, don't forget, if you're back in Brener, he was getting 7 shades of shit beaten out of him by Guram up until he landed that big body shot and then finished him with the big headshot late in the third. That was late in the third. The over 2.5 rounds cashed in that fight.
Yeah, I remember looking at the live line for Guram. He was a really big favorite. I think the live line going into the third was like minus 700 or something like that.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, he was winning.
Ribovics is a handsome dude. Yeah, he's not too bad there. But yeah, we'll see what happens in this fight. Pretty close fight and one of the best fights on the card. All right, move on to the featured prelim here. We got Ismael Bonfim going against Vinc Pichel. We got Bonfim at 27 years old, 5'8", 71-inch reach. Vinc Pichel, 40 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Bonfim, 13 years younger, 2-inch height disadvantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Bonfim is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Terrence McKinney, won that fight by knockout, had a Contender Series win as well by decision, and then lost his last time out against Benoit Saint-Denis by submission, making it his 4th submission loss in his career. As far as Vinc Pichel, he's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. The submission win against Gregor Gillespie, submission loss against Gregor Gillespie, a decision win against Roosevelt Roberts, a decision win against Jim Miller, a decision win against Austin Hubbard, and a decision loss against Mark Madsen. So, yeah, I mean, Vinc Pichel, this is a guy who is 41 years old, and he will be turning 42 in November. November 23rd, he's going to be turning 42 years old, which is, no, he's going to be turning 41. He's going to be turning 41 years old, but regardless, I mean, he's getting up there in age. This is a guy, Vinc Pichel, who just hasn't been that active. Like that Gregor Gillespie fight feels like an eternity ago. It was 5 years and 4 months ago. And then even his last fight against Mark Madsen, that was a year and a half ago. So he's not been that active. He's now 41 years old, and he's taken on a guy in Ismael Bonfim who is very good. I think he has a bright future. He did take a loss against Benoit Saint Denis, but as we know, there's really no shame in that. And Benoit Saint Denis went out there and won in a way that Bonfim has lost throughout his career. Bonfim, all 4 of his losses come by submission. And what's interesting about this fight is Vinc Pichel has 0 submission wins. I think he is a black belt, but 0 submission wins nonetheless. I feel like it should be Bonfim here all day. He's a big favorite. I feel like Bonfim's going to be the faster fighter, better striking, more volume. And I also feel like Bonfim can mix in takedowns if he wants to, just due to the fact that Pichel has some of the worst takedown defense you'll ever see. So it should be Bonfim. I'm kind of leaning by decision. But my goodness, Ismael Bonfim minus 465. Minus 465 here. I think he wins, but I don't know about all that.
Yeah, Pichel's 14-2 as a pro. You know, he's 7-2 in the UFC since the year 2013. The 3 losses that he's got in the UFC, one before 2013 was to Rustam Habibov, who's a Dagestani wrestler who just suplexed the shit out of him and literally knocked him out with suplexes. And then he loses to Gregor Gillespie, who's one of the best wrestlers to ever set foot in the UFC cage. And then he loses to Mark Madsen by decision, who's an Olympic silver medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling. So Vinc Pichel's a very good wrestler, but if you can out-wrestle Vince, that's when you're going to beat him. But the thing is that he's a really good minute winner. He's 6-1 in his career in decisions. This guy in the UFC is 6-1, as a matter of fact, as well. So there's just a lot there to like on the Pichel side, just because he can win minutes, and that's how we've seen Bonfim lose minutes, because Bonfim's striking is phenomenal. His boxing is so crisp. I mean, he's got a professional boxing background, and it shows in the cage. The jab comes right back to the face, so he's really good defensively, and it shows in the numbers. 69% distance striking defense, 56% distance striking accuracy. He throws about 3 less distance strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, but he lands 1.52 more than his opponents do per minute spent at distance. So while this guy's at distance striking range, he's phenomenal. He's defensively responsible. He's extremely accurate. He's got power, and he doesn't have to worry about getting out volume because he's so defensively responsible. So there's no way that Vinc Pichel is going to win minutes at distance against this guy. He's much less accurate. He won't be as defensively responsible, and he won't be nearly as fast either. Obviously, Bonfim, being 13 years younger than this guy, is going to be the faster guy. He's going to be the better athlete. He's going to be more explosive at this age. But what Vince can always do is you lean on that 3.06 takedowns per 15 minutes. Lean on that 30% control time that he has in a sample size where he's fighting a bunch of wrestlers, Brady. Bunch of them. So, I like Vince here to make this fight close if he fights smart, if he goes out there and gets into the clinch immediately, if he goes out there and tries to wrestle for the full 3 rounds against Ismael Bonfim, because every minute that he spends at distance striking range, is going to be a problem for him. And we know that Ismael's got a pretty good submission game of his own, so if you get sloppy shooting in on a takedown, he can get you in the guillotine and finish the fight that way. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose I get it if some people are going to take a shot on Pichel at the current number, because there is a path for him. We know what Vinc Pichel's path is. It's for him to win by decision and use his wrestling and top control. And that's the best part of his jiu-jitsu game. He's not an aggressive submission grappler, but what some guys do very well with their jiu-jitsu is they blend their wrestling with their jiu-jitsu in order to be able to keep their opponents back on that mat, and make them give up their back to stand up, and then maybe they can get on the back, win the rest of the round there, get that body triangle. Those are things that Pichel can do. if Bonfim's not careful and if he hasn't cleaned up that takedown defense a little bit, because we did see Benoit Saint-Denis get to those advantageous positions against them. But yeah, I think Ismael Bonfim gets the win here. It's just I don't know what we can do at this current number with it.
Yeah, minus 465 for Bonfim. Yeah, I don't like that. The over kind of interests me a little bit because Pichel, he's a tough dude, but he has been finishing 2 of his 3 losses, and he is like 41 years old. Don't think I'll touch it, but if I was to bet an over on this card, that was actually the one I was looking at there. Let's see here. Let's see. Weezy, if you look closely, you can see Ismael Bonfim is wearing a mask. Is he? When you remove it, you could see that he was, in fact, the fraudulent Vinicius Salvador hidden in plain sight. I think he's better than Salvador. Come on, Dixon.
Yeah, at least Ismael took fights in LFA, like at least he was in there again in a real promotion instead of coming into the UFC beating Wallace Vampirino at 0-0 in some Brazilian parking lot. So yeah, definitely Bonfim a lot more well tested, but we got a lot more to learn about this kid. This guy made his debut when he was 15 years old, Brady. 15. Think about that. He had to get emancipated from his parents in order to be able to take a professional fight at the age of 15, because that's what he wanted to do with his life. He knew back then, so this guy's been in combat sports since he was probably about yay high. So he should be all right here, and Pichel is 41 years old, damn near 41 years old. So yeah. We'll see how this one shakes out, but it's going to be a fun fight.
Yeah, Pichel couldn't even handle Mark Madsen striking, and that is true, and that is not a good look whatsoever. And that was like a year and a half ago at this point. Mushroom says, kind of off topic, but at this point, should we put out a missing person report on Kim Winslow? And by the way, Weezy, I did send you a Kim Winslow photo the other day that I think kind of freaked you out. I think it was this one right here.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. Why? I think everyone just tuned out. How many live viewers do we have left now?
We dropped about 50 in a couple seconds.
That's going to happen. Yeah. I mean, but if I'm not going to look at the screen right now, but if you've seen that face, ladies and gentlemen, please alert the Stat Diggers crew. You can talk to our producers of the show. We want to know where Kim Winslow is. We're very concerned about her well-being right now.
Yeah, the last time we saw her, she was doing that, whatever that is.
Yeah.
What is that? Look at the caption. These bizarre photos of UFC ref Kim Winslow will give you nightmares. Snow White? What's going on? So that's what she's been up to.
And it is we're creeping up on Halloween, Brady. So there's a more apropos time to show these Kim Winslow photos. I mean, I'd like to know when it is.
I guess it is the best time if there's a good time at all. But Dixon saying, Brady and Weezy, here's my angle on this fight. Pichel in Spanish means, or Pichel means pitcher in Spanish. And what do you use to fill your cup? A pitcher. Pichel by decision. # fill my cup. Okay.
I mean, look, Pichel by decision is going to be something like plus 700. So maybe it's worth a little sprinkle there if you think that Pichel can win a ton of minutes on the ground with his wrestling and top control.
Ison liking the over, and I agree. Don't know if I'll get there, though, but I do lean the over here because Pichel has been finished twice, but like you said, it was that slam, and then was also a submission loss to Gregor Gillespie. Other than that, he's not been finished. He's a tough. He's from hell, and you're not typically finishing people from hell.
Very difficult, man. I mean, Satan's been around for millennia. He's still there, So what are you going to do? You're not finishing them. The best you could do is try to win those minutes.
Yep. 100%. All right. We'll move on to the, I believe this is the main card opener. We have Rodolfo Vieira going against Armen Petrosyan. We got Rodolfo Vieira, 34 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. Armen Petrosyan, 32 years old, 6'3" with a 71-inch reach. Rodolfo Vieira, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A submission win against Saberbeg Safarov, a submission loss against Anthony Hernandez, a submission win against Dustin Stoltzfus, a decision loss against Chris Curtis, and then a submission win against Cody Brundage. As far as Armen Petrosyan, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, had a knockout win on the Contender Series, made his debut against Gregory Rodriguez, won that fight by decision, lost the decision to Caio Borralho, and then beat AJ Dobson and Christian Leroy Duncan both by decision. So this is a fascinating matchup for me here. We have Rodolfo Vieira, who is one of the best grapplers in the middleweight division. This guy's grappling's incredible, very, very high level black belt. And he's taken on Armen Petrosyan, who has probably the worst takedown defense in the entire division. So Rodolfo Vieira is going to have no problem taking this fight down to the mat. And when you're on the mat with Rodolfo Vieira, it's very terrifying. But in a lot of Petrosyan fights, it happens like this. He gets taken down multiple times. He gets controlled, and then his opponent's gassed out, and then he knocks him out. I mean, it happens in a lot of his fights outside the UFC. Inside the UFC, has not shown any finishing upside. Really took Duncan, Dobson, and Rodriguez to decision there. But, you know, I feel like Petrosyan's going to clearly be the better striker. It's just his takedown defense that worries me a little bit. I think Rodolfo Vieira is going to have a lot of opportunities early on to find a submission here, but if not, we always have to worry about the cardio of Rodolfo Vieira. And on the feet, like I said, although Vieira's improved his striking, Petrosyan's the much better striker here. So striker versus grappler matchup, I don't know. I feel like Vieira's very, very, very live here to find an early finish. I mean, Petrosyan's getting taken down by everybody, but getting taken down by Rodolfo Vieira, it's a lot different than some of these other guys. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this matchup? One of my favorite fights on the card.
Yeah, when I saw this, I thought to myself, you know, I wonder what the line is. I would probably line this around like minus 110 because they both have the most blatant path to victory possible. This is as striker versus grappler as it gets, right? So, and is that right where it's at right now? Is it still like pick 'em?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like that's exactly where it should be. I mean, like this guy Petrosyan's got a horrible takedown defense. I think Rodolfo Vieira by first round submission should be an auto bet. That should be an auto bet. You know, I mean, like at any price, because this guy, his takedown defense is horrible, and Rodolfo Vieira's top pressure is ridiculous. It's crushing. His arm triangle is so smooth. As soon as he gets on top of you, dude, you're not getting up. And you know, this is a little bit different of a Vieira that fought Anthony Hernandez back in the day. You know, Petrosyan is not Anthony Hernandez with his jiu-jitsu. He's not anywhere close to that. So, and then yeah, since every round's going to start on the feet, you know, Petrosyan's going to definitely be the much better kickboxer. But you know, and he throws a lot of volume too. He stays very busy. He's gonna have to maybe tone down the kicks a little bit. He doesn't want to get those kicks caught because that's a real easy way to get like tree topped and put flat on your back. And that is not where you want to be against Rodolfo Vieira. He can easily take your back at any time if you give up your back to get back up. And that's something I've seen Petrosyan do a ton of too. So I think Rodolfo Vieira by first round knockout, by first round submission, Petrosyan by second round knockout, Petrosyan by third round knockout. That's probably the way to play this one. You could be agnostic about who wins the fight. You don't have to analyze, you know, who's going to stop the takedowns, you know, who's got the edge in this striker versus grappler matchup. You can just kind of say, hey, look, when they're dry, you know, I think that Vieira can absolutely submit them first round, early second round. And then after that, it's going to be really hard for Vieira to keep getting takedowns. You know, he's too muscular and his conditioning isn't good enough to go out there and shoot, you know, 20 takedowns in a fight and think that he's going to be getting them regularly. A lot of them are just going to be from way out, irresponsible shots because he's not comfortable striking against somebody as skilled as Petrosyan is on the feet. So, yeah, it's either Vieira early or Petrosyan late.
Yep, I'm seeing it the exact same way. Why are people betting Rodolfo? I mean, Petrosyan on paper has 35% takedown defense, which is horrible, but I'm surprised it's even that high. Like this guy, I'm surprised it's not like 10%. I mean, he gets taken down by everybody. I mean, even outside the UFC, he's getting taken down by bums. And if you get taken down by Rodolfo, I mean, you could be in trouble early. So if you are betting Petrosyan, you're going to be sweating early on, I think. But I agree, if this fight does get to the second and third, it's Petrosyan all day. And yeah, that's kind of how I would live bet Petrosyan as well after the first round. And then I also would look at those 2-3 sprinkles also. Caio couldn't submit Armen, so I don't think Rodolfo will either. Different level of jiu-jitsu there. I know Caio's different. Yeah, I know Kyle's really good. I'm really high on him, but really big, different level of jiu-jitsu there. So yeah, -110 pick him. I don't know. Like you said, I think the best way to play is Rodolfo round 1 sub or Petrosyan 2-3 KO. I think those are the two most likely outcomes there.
Couldn't agree more. And I might even sprinkle a little second round sub for Vieira too. You know, if
That is
he
true.
gets an early takedown and gets time to work, that's all he needs. He's very, very good on top. Obviously, 8 wins by way of submission, and the guy's only got 9 wins. So yeah, he's gonna be looking to get this fight to the ground and submit the kickboxer. It's plain as day. Will he be able to execute it? Because believe me, Armen Petrosyan knows what's coming. So he's going to be training for it. It's a great fight, great striker versus grappler fight. But another reason to bet Vieira here is that Petrosyan's coming a long way for this fight. Armenia to Brazil, not a great flight. South Florida to Brazil, a lot easier.
Yep, it's an interesting fight. Rodolfo officially lost. Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't change that nickname. He's still going by the Black Belt Hunter after Fluffy did pop his cherry there. So
yeah, but Hernandez isn't a black belt, so the name is still apt. He just lost to a purple belt, But like if Hernandez was a black belt, he would have been screwed.
Yep.
Think about that. Think about that, Dick's Insider.
Dick's Insider. Yeah, interesting fight. I think the under's like decent. Under 2.5 is -170. I think it probably hits. Vieira early, Petrosyan late.
Yeah, Vieira is really durable, though.
Yeah,
remember?
Yeah.
He took a beating from Chris Curtis and never went down. And even Brundage had him in some really bad spots. But this dude is stupid durable. He could take a lot of punishment. And yeah, that's a good win for Vieira because Brundage, he just knocked out Malkoun in the first round. So then Vieira's hot right now. He's looking good.
That is true. That is true. All right. Yeah, nothing for me yet on this fight, but I'll be looking at the props there. All right, I'll move on to the next fight. We have, speaking of Caio Borralho, we got Caio Borralho going against Abus Magomedov. We got Borralho, 30 years old, 5'10" with a 75-inch reach. Magomedov, 33 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. We got Borralho 3 years younger. He made a 4-inch height disadvantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Caio Borralho is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Omar Gadziev, won that fight by decision. He beat Armen Petrosyan by decision. He beat Magomedov by decision, and then he submitted Mikhail Olazechuk. As far as Abus Magomedov, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Dustin Stoltzfus, won that fight by knockout in the first round, and then got knocked out by Sean Strickland in the second round. So I was one of the many people that kind of got fooled by Abus Magomedov. I think this guy, I don't say this too often because I think this term does get overused, but I think he got kind of fraud checked in that Strickland fight. He's a guy that he was looking good in the first round against Sean Strickland, but once that second round hit, he had nothing left in the tank. I mean, his cardio was atrocious. He was super tired. He had nothing left in the second round in a 5-round fight. I mean, how are you going to go into a 5-round fight with only 5 minutes of cardio? And that's kind of what happened with Abus. And then I went back and watched this guy's fights, and I kind of remembered why I was so high on this guy, why people were so high on this guy, because he's super good, man. His striking's incredible. He has good volume early on. He can wrestle. He can grapple. Very opportunistic submission guy. I mean, this guy, Magomedov, is very good, but if you don't have, 15 minutes of cardio at the UFC level, you're not going to go too far. And is he going to go out there and knock out Borralho in the first round? I'm not so sure about that. So I was really impressed with going back and watching Magomedov. I think he's very good, but the cardio is the big issue for me. I think if he had cardio here, I probably would even play him at this price because I'm assuming he's probably a massive dog in this one after he looked terrible in the Strickland fight. But I'm kind of leaning Caio. I'm kind of leaning towards him losing the first round, but taking over in the second or third, maybe getting a late sub here. I don't trust the cardio of Magomedov, and it's not like he's a young guy as well. He's 33 years old at this point. So I'm going to take Caio late sub here for me. But Magomedov probably wins this early on. I think Magomedov's very good. And by the way, I went and watched the majority of his fights. I didn't really see him getting taken down much. I think his takedown evens is legit, but it's the cardio is kind of the one thing I think is going to fail him here. This line is probably too wide because he was just a favorite against Sean Strickland. We got to remember that. He was like -150 against Sean Strickland, -140. Now he's a pretty big dog here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I remember cashing on that Magomedov fight because I think I had fight doesn't go to decision because it was a Strickland fight. But I'm like, dude, this is a Magomedov fight. This guy finishes his fights. But I remember being very surprised that Magomedov gassed out after one round because I didn't see any of that on. Did you see any of that on tape from him in any of his prior performances? Did you ever see Magomedov gassing out after one round?
I saw him slow down in one of his 3-round fights against his buddy. I forget which fight it was, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of feel like that was a one-off in terms of cardio. But we'll see. You know, here he's once again. It's a long trip from where Magomedov is trains to Brazil, so that's not going to be in his favor. The crowd is going to be a very Borralho pro crowd. So and Borralho is a hell of a fighter. I mean, he's a southpaw on the feet. He's got that karate style, very difficult to deal with, in and out, kind of low volume but high accuracy and good defensively. But you know, everything that Borralho does well, Magomedov can do the exact same shit. Magomedov is just as good of a wrestler, if not better, than Borralho. Magomedov is just as good of a control grappler on the ground as Borralho. Magomedov is just as explosive on the feet as Borralho. You know, you hear it when you watch the old tape on Magomedov. The announcers will say, yes, he's from Dagestan. Yes, this dude can absolutely wrestle. And everybody that's in the gym with him testifies to the fact that Abus Magomedov is a very good wrestler. But he doesn't want to wrestle because he thinks it's boring. He wants to put on exciting fights. And Caio doesn't really want to do that. Caio is a smart fighter. You know, he's going to take the fight wherever you feel less comfortable. And Caio is trained in a way and put his skill set together in a way that he can go to multiple tools in multiple different situations. This is a guy who's fully capable of making in-fight adjustments if something isn't working because he's got so many tools. He fights southpaw, but he's a natural orthodox. You know, he fights in a style that he feels gives him better chances to win and more options with which to attack with. So he's a very, very smart fighter. He's the kind of guy you don't necessarily mind laying juice on because you know Caio is going to be the kind of guy who's not going to strike with a striker and grapple with a grappler. He'll be able to do what he does best and what his opponent does worst. So I really like that about him. I think that that's very important. So, and like you said, dude, if Magomedov doesn't bring a full 3 rounds of cardio here, he's going to get smoked. We saw what happened to Omar Gadziev when he gassed out against Borralho. He had to, that fight got called a technical decision because he quit trying to get a foul, because he knew that he wasn't going to beat Borralho and he didn't have enough left in the tank. And if that happens to Magomedov, he's going to be finding himself in the same situation because it's very hard to win minutes against Caio Borralho. He's very defensively sound, and he has a way of being able to control fights. 55% control time for Caio Borralho. Only 12%, 13% control time against. He's winning 81% of the control time positions, and his fights are in control time positions 68% of the time. And when he's at distance, he does very good work as well. Even though he's low volume, he lands almost as much as his much higher volume opponents. So, I think Caio probably does get the job done here, probably by decision. But who knows, man? It's a live crowd, and who knows what Magomedov is going to have. I mean, after that last performance, you really do have to question whether the guy's bringing 15 minutes worth of cardio to the cage.
Yeah. Borralho minus 243 and Magomedov is plus 208. Borralho actually opened up minus 425 there. So I'm sure a lot of people are very low after that Strickland performance, which, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, he just lost to the champion. So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I think it's kind of how he lost. I mean, he looked completely done after 5 minutes. And if he comes in there with 5 minutes of gas, I mean, he's getting finished in this fight as well. So we'll see. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 plus 100. The under 2.5 is minus 130. I think the under is very interesting. Magomedov goes under like all the time. I can't remember like the last time he's been to decision. I think it's been like a long time ago. I kind of lean under, but I kind of have a feeling more money is going to come in the over. And I'm also going to be taking a look at the late Caio submission props. If he gasses out, he's getting subbed. So I don't know. It's a weird fight to me. I feel like we're being a little bit too harsh on Magomedov, but I need to kind of see that he has more than 5 minutes of gas, because I was going through his record and he does not go to decision all that often.
No, Magomedov has got 27 fights and only 5 of them have been to decision. And I believe of those 5, I think a couple of them might be 2-round fights
Yeah,
because he
exactly.
was, this guy is not going past 2.5 rounds very often. I think MMA Propaholic might have been under the under 2.5 for this fight. And I think it's a good look. You're going to have to lay a little bit of juice for it, but Caio can finish, and we know that Abus is a absolute finisher. The guy's got tons of power, and he's got really good wrestling too. So he can put his opponents in really bad spots on the ground. So yeah, I could see this one finishing under 2.5 rounds, not going to decision. I think those are good looks for this fight because that line on Barralho is a little bit juiced. It's hard to bet somebody is that big of a favorite.
And I also might be looking to live bet Caio as well because I feel like Magomedov destroyed Strickland in the first round. It wasn't even close. I think he outlanded him something crazy in the first round. Let me see what he got there. So in the first round, Magomedov outlanded Sean Strickland 32-11 in the first round.
Did he take him down?
He did. He did.
Yeah. Okay. See, he's good, man. And Magomedov is very, very good. It's just like I said, that the way that he gassed in that fight was very perplexing. I'd be interested to know if he had a horrible weight cut, maybe if he was sick. If there was some kind of an excuse for that, that would be something that might make me want to sprinkle his money line a little bit here because this dude's really good, Magomedov. He shouldn't be this big of an underdog against somebody in Borralho has got very similar skill sets, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was an excuse. I mean, there's always an excuse. But
yeah,
I haven't heard anything though.
Oh, and I want to say one more thing, Brady. Caio Borralho is a liar. I'm calling him a liar. He's not 5'10", Brady. He's not 5'10". This dude's 6'1", easy, maybe 6'2". How does he get away with that shit? He's not 5'10". Caio Borralho, I'm calling you a liar. I want to see an official height measurement. I'm calling bullshit on 5'10".
Yeah, he's a liar. He's one of those guys that is lying. Who was it? Remember, he was standing up against
Gadziev. He was taller than Omar Gadziev, and Gadziev said he was 6'1", and Caio was like 5'10", and I'm like, wait, Gadzi's wearing shoes and he's shorter than Caio, so I'm calling him a liar.
He's a liar. But Dixon talking about the fight IQ there for Caio, and he's like one of the few exceptions. We always talk about on the show, if you make bad decisions outside the cage, you're going to make bad decisions inside the cage. He's one of the few exceptions. I mean, he got that neck tattoo, which I don't think is the best life choice, but inside the cage, like you said, he's making all the right decisions there. He fights smart, and he's a good fighter to back. But I'm not backing him at this price tag though. But I'll pick him to win.
I'll pick him to win too. I mean, Caio's a very smart fighter. I love backing smart fighters that make good decisions in the cage, and Caio definitely fits that archetype.
100%. All right, Weezy, let's move on to the most hilarious fight of the card. We got Rodrigo Nascimento going against our boy, Don'Tale Mayes. We got Nascimento, 30 years old, 6'2" with an 80-inch reach. Don'Tale Mayes, 31 years old, 6'6" with an 81-inch reach. Nascimento, 1 year younger, 4-inch height disadvantage, and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Nascimento is 3-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Submission win against Don'Tale Mayes, knockout loss against Chris Daukaus, no contest against Alain Badeau, decision win against Tanner Bozer, and then a decision win against Ilir Latifi. As far as Don'Tale Mayes, he has 3-1 and 1 no contest as well. He had a decision win against Roy Martinez, knockout win against Josh Parisian, no contest against Hamdi Abdul-Wahab, decision loss against Augustus Sakai, and then a knockout win against Andrei Arlovsky. So I have a feeling that the UFC completely forgot that these two fought before. Because this rematch doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I'm not really sure why they're making this fight. I don't think anybody really wants to see this rematch, but so I kind of think they maybe forgot that these two have fought, but they did. They fought a couple years ago, and in that fight, Nascimento went out there in the first round, cleanly outstruck Don'Tale Mayes, and then in the second round, Don'Tale Mayes got taken down and choked out shortly after. And since then, not a ton has changed. I do think both guys made some improvements. Don'Tale Mayes is doing some work at Jackson Wink, and Nascimento is training at a very good gym in ATT. Both these guys are pretty young for heavyweight as well. I like Nascimento here. It's hard not seeing the fight going the exact same. Don'Tale Mayes has awful takedown defense. I mean, even Augustus Sakai took him down, which is very interesting. I think Mays has 33% takedown defense in the UFC. Not good. Nascimento should be able to get this fight down to the mat, and on top, that's his base. He's a grappler, a BJJ black belt. And then even on the feet, I think it's, semi-competitive, if not favoring Nascimento, at least early on. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like Nascimento. This line kind of seems bettable to me. I'm actually shocked money's coming in on Dontel Mays, because why would anybody bet Dontel Mays? But yeah, I like Nascimento here to get the job done. I'm not sure how he does it, though. Maybe decision, submission. But yeah, I like Nascimento here. I'll never forget, putting money on Dontel Mays against Hamdi Abdul-Wahab. It was probably one of the worst decisions I made in my life. And I made some bad decisions, and it was only like a half unit, but that half unit's going to haunt me for the rest of my life, putting money on Dontel Mays there. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I had money. I picked Dontel Mays, the ass shaving of the week, against Abdul Wahab on short notice. I mean, I don't know how he blew that one, but he definitely managed to blow it and show piss poor fight IQ. We're coming off of Caio Borralho talking about a guy with great fight IQ. Dontel Mays absolutely has Hamdi Abdul Wahab on skates, falling backwards into the fence. And what does he do? He walks backward into the center of the cage and decides to take a rest. So, yeah, you can't really count on Mays making good decisions here. And Nascimento's a BJJ black belt. Dude's got a good ground game. And the other thing that I noticed about Nascimento is that the striking's not bad. It's pretty fluid for a big guy. And Mays, Mays just looks like he's carrying a piano on his back everywhere he goes, dude. He's just so slow. It's like every time he moves in the cage, you see like that footprint like come out of the canvas. He's just got lead in his feet. So he's going to be slower than a guy whose nickname is Yogi Bear in Nascimento, He's probably the more powerful striker, though. Well, we got to give Dontel that. But Nascimento's a lot higher volume. And I think you really have to worry a lot more about Nascimento's ground game here. But to be fair, Dontel Mays, the wins that he has in the UFC are about as good as Nascimento's. Dontel Mays has fought the better brand of competition overall. And the guy should be better than what he is. I mean, he's got a phenomenal body for the weight class to be 6'6" with an 81-inch reach. And then you look at him and it's like, clearly Dontel's in the gym. Clearly he's working out. This guy's in phenomenal condition. I mean, if you were building a heavyweight in the lab, he'd probably wind up looking a lot like Dontel Mays, only with speed and no piano on his back. So, I mean, he should be able to do better than what he does, but I'm not really sure what Dontel does well at this point. Does he have a ton of power for a heavyweight? No. Is he fast for a heavyweight? God, no. Is he a great wrestler for a heavyweight? He's gotten some good numbers. He's had some success with the grappling, but he doesn't want to go to the ground with Nascimento here. And he doesn't show phenomenal conditioning either. So, yeah, I think it's Nascimento here. I think he should get the job done.
Yeah, it's interesting. Nascimento opened up minus 400. He's currently minus 175. Dontel Mays opened up plus 330, currently plus 150. Minus 175 is kind of getting into the bettable range for me on Nascimento. I think he has a lot of ways to win this fight. I think the striking is in favor of Nascimento, especially early on. And then I think he has a clear path. I mean, exploiting that trash takedown defense of Dontel Mays. And if Nascimento gets on top of you, you're typically staying there. He went out there, took down Tanner Boser in each round, controlled him there. And he's also dangerous as well. Mays has been finished twice by sub and I think once by knockout also. So let's see where they have this over under. It looks like it's set at 1.5, and the 1.5 is juiced to the over minus 200, which makes sense. The under 1.5 is plus 160. Any thoughts on that? I'm not touching it, I don't think, but it looks like it's at 1.5.
A 1.5? I think maybe over. What was? But it's minus 200, right?
Yeah, which is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, that's terrifying for a heavyweight fight. But to be honest, that's probably about where it should be. So, yeah, that's a stay away from me. And at this current line, I could see maybe like throwing Nascimento's money line into the greasy four-legger this week. Something like that. But I don't know if I want to straight bet him.
Yeah. Not that it matters, but their first fight did go under 1.5. Nascimento finished him in 2 minutes and 5 seconds into the second round. So
So
it
right
was
on, yeah, like 25 seconds away. So the over bettors were pissed. The under bettors were probably putting a little bit of extra in the collection plate at church the next week.
yes, 100%. All right, let's move on to the co-main events. We have Gabriel Bonfim going against Nicolas Dalby. We got Bonfim, 26 years old, 6'1" with a 72-inch reach. Dalby, 38 years old, 5'11" with a 74-inch reach. Bonfim, 12 years younger, 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Bonfim, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Obviously, he's undefeated, 15-0. Had a submission win in the first round against Trey Waters. Von Flew, he had a submission win against Munir Lazez in like 60 seconds and had a submission win against Trevin Giles in like about 60 seconds as well. I mean, Bonfim's been looking incredible. Nicolas Dalby, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision win or robbery win against Danny Rodriguez. Still not sure how he won that fight. Decision loss against Tim Means, decision win against Claudio Silva, a decision win against Worley Alves, and then a decision win against Muslim Salikov. I think it's safe to assume that it's a really big step up in competition for Nicolas Dalby here. So yeah, I like Bonfim. Between him and his brother, I like Bonfim more. I think this guy is incredibly skilled. Really, wherever the fight goes, you go and watch his fights outside the UFC, and pretty much every fight plays out with him piecing up his opponent, hurting his opponent, and then his opponent shoots in for a takedown. And once his opponent shoots in for a takedown, the fight's over shortly after. And we saw that in the Giles fight. Bonfim did take down Giles. Giles got back up. But Giles went for like a takedown on him for some reason. Typical Officer Giles fight IQ there. And then Bonfim snatched up his neck. He's probably one of the best opportunistic submission artists I've ever seen. Like anytime this guy goes for a sub, he gets it. And then, like I said, on the feet offensively, I think he's very good. I think he has a ton of power. Defensively, though, he does leave a lot to be desired. He's there to be hit. But, against a guy like Nicolas Dalby that doesn't have a ton of power, I think he'll be all right there. Yeah, I mean, Bonfim should win this fight. I think he's the biggest favorite on the card, and I think the biggest favorite on the card for a reason. He's going to be dangerous wherever the fight goes. On the feet, he has a bunch of power, and then, of course, that really, really good submission game there. So I like Bonfim here quite a bit, but like I said, he's like probably minus 600 at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, this guy, Bonfim, I don't know how you could watch tape on this guy and think that he's ever going to lose. This guy, I've never seen him go for a submission that he didn't get. And even when he gets the submissions, it's like people are tapping faster than they should. He's just so opportunistic. If he locks onto something, it means he knows he's going to get it, and he does get it. And it ends fights. 100% finish rate, 15-0. 15 finishes, 12 submissions, which is crazy because this guy doesn't wrestle. You don't see him wrestling. He's just piecing motherfuckers up on the feet. And then when they get sick of it, getting their face boxed off, then they shoot in, and then he gets his submission however he wants it. Guillotine, he'll get on top and get the Von Flew, get the rear naked choke. It doesn't matter. He's so good. And now it just kind of like, I feel like they're bringing Dalby in because Dalby's never been finished, and they're like, now let's see if he can finish, a UFC veteran who's really good at dirtying up fights, making them filthy, getting on the cage, slowing it down. When it's at distance, staying at a wide karate type range, making people pay a price for entry, and really just kind of not letting fighters get into a rhythm. That Dalby's really good at that. So this is going to be an interesting style to see Gabriel Bonfim try to deal with, because Gabriel is still only 26 years old. He's still got 15 fights, and only two of them at the UFC level. But man, those wins were impressive. I mean, Munir Lazez is a real good win for a debut. Trevin Giles is a really good win for a second fight in the UFC. And you're not seeing anything in those wins that leads you to believe like, I think this guy might gas out later, or, the striking's not very good, or, he kind of got lucky there. He was cheating, and, that's why he wound up getting that. No, you're not seeing any of that. This guy is just crisp and clean, and everything that he does looks professional and high level. So now he's got Nick Dalby, who's got 29 professional fights and who's never been finished in his career. never been finished by somebody that wasn't on goofballs. Okay. So if you're on goofballs, maybe you might be able to get, Dalby out of there. But outside of that, it's never happened yet. But this is the time when it happens. I mean, you need to be able to breathe in order to fight. And nobody's that tough. So I think he's gonna get that arm around the neck of Dalby at some point and finish this fight. This is, he's so much better than Nick Dalby. But what Nick Dalby is really good at is being able to win fights, even though he's not a particularly talented mixed martial artist or explosive anywhere. Nick Dalby, you don't say anything other than, oh yeah, he's really tough, and he can make fights close against people that are more talented than him. And it's that style that he fights that he can kind of drag you into his fight and then wind up getting his hand raised after 15 minutes and you're wondering what the hell happened. That's how Dalby gets a lot of wins here. So always got to be careful because of the stylistic matchup difficulties that a fighter the archetype of Dalby brings here. But this guy, Bonfim, you just don't see anything on tape that says, oh, I'm getting ready to short this guy. He's a bum. He's a fraud. And he's not. He's so good, Brady.
Yeah, he definitely is very, very good. Yeah, minus 600 for Bonfim though, so we gotta definitely lay the price there. And I'm actually confused why they set the over under at 2.5. Like it should obviously be at 1.5. But yeah, the under 2.5 is minus 220. That even seems kind of generous. I know Dalby's never been finished. I know Jesse Ronson finished him, but like you said, he was on PEDs. But to be honest, I mean, you can give Jesse Ronson any PED you want. I mean, Bonfim is so much more dangerous than lightweight Jesse Ronson. That still to this day makes no sense. I know he was goofed up, but come on. So yeah, I think Bonfim probably continues that 100% finish rate. I like Bonfim inside the distance, but we're going to be having to lay chalk on that. Any thoughts on the over under?
Yeah, so like the data, Brady, if you just want to say, all right, let's pretend like we've never watched Gabriel Bonfim fight. The data is going to tell us to bet the over because it's a Nicolas Dalby fight, because that's where the entire sample size of fights is. And if you look at like the over 2.5 rounds, or over 1.5 at plus 115, which is where I had it, they got it at 46% price. 66% of these fights go over 1.5 rounds in the welterweight weight class, but 10 of 11 fights for Dalby in the UFC have went over 1.5 rounds. 10 of 11 have went to decision. The only time that a Nick Dalby fight didn't go to decision was when Jesse Ronson came in there and hopped up on goofballs. So, but this would be the guy that would finish him because Bonfim's submission game is incredible.
Maybe he can channel his inner Jesse Ronson. If he does that, he probably gets him out of there. Yeah, you're right. It's set at 1.5 now. So I guess it originally was set at 2.5. They took it off, and now it's 1.5. And yep, it is minus 145 to the under there, which makes sense. It should be set at 1.5. I mean, Bonfim has had what, a couple minutes of cage time in 3 fights.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, like as soon as somebody makes a mistake, it's just over. The fight's over. But just a little bit of interesting number here. Gabriel Bonfim's fights, 12 fights outside the UFC, Brady, all of them finishes, obviously. 5 of them went under 1.5, which means 7 went over.
And that's so hard to believe, but yeah, you're right. But to be fair, I mean, he was probably a lot younger at that point. He is improving, but yeah, you're correct. A lot of those fights ended like late second round. I think he has 2 finishes in the third round as well. He's been over 2.5 only once.
Yeah. So, it does take him a little bit of time to find the finishes on the regional scene, but man, up here at this level, this guy, yeah, he looks incredible. I can't wait to see him fight Nick Dalby. This is going to be a good one.
It is going to be a good one for as long as it lasts. Maybe it lasts more than 60 seconds this time around. We'll see. And I did want to see what the Bonfim parlay comes out to. So Ismael Bonfim minus 440, parlay with Gabriel Bonfim minus 550. Can I interest you in the Bonfim brothers, which I'm sure is gonna be a very popular parlay this week, minus 222.
Whoo, baby. I'd rather just bet Vitor Petrino at -222.
Yeah, their lines have got some. I'm sure it's like a very popular parlay this week and parlay pieces this week, and rightfully so. But yeah, those two parlay pieces together, -222 already, and it's Sunday, and I don't see anybody betting Dalby or Pichel. Like, I really don't.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, but eventually, there's going to be some resistance to this line moving because Nick Dalby's not a bum, and Vinc Pichel is not a bum. These guys are good fighters. These guys are guys with winning records in the UFC. So, it's interesting, but these Bonfim brothers, they're phenomenal prospects, and it's really cool to see them fighting on the same card in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Yep, I cannot wait for both those fights. Really. All right, and by the way, Dixon brings up a very good point for the Abus Magomedov fight. So Caio was originally supposed to fight Nursultan Rozabayev. So Abus has taken this fight on short notice, which is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. After the
I mean,
yeah, the
cardio
cardio
sucks already.
performance the last time out was so bad, and unless that was an adrenaline dump, that is terrifying because
So
Abus
yeah,
does not live in Brazil. For those of you guys who don't know, this is going to be a bit of a trip for him to get there.
yikes! I like Caio even more now. I mean, yeah, give me Caio here. A late finish there, a short notice. I hate that for Abus. All right.
I wanted to see
Anyway,
him fight Ruzaboyev, man. I think Ruzaboyev might be a fraud too.
I forget. Did Ruzabayev go out there and finish? What's his face?
Ferreira.
Rare. Yeah.
The Hulk Ferreira, the dude that looks like he's carved out of marble, who knocked out Gregory Rodriguez in his previous fight. He
Yep.
came in and he knocked out Ferreira.
Yep. That fight would have been fun, but the Abus fight's gonna be fun as well. And this main event's gonna be fun. We got Jailton Almeida going against Derrick Lewis, another short notice fight. It was supposed to be Almeida versus Curtis Blades, which was a really fascinating fight to talk about, to be honest. But Curtis Blades pulled out. Respect to Curtis Blades. I mean, showing great fight IQ there, not fighting Jailton Almeida. Great career choice. In steps Derrick Lewis, coming in here on short notice. We'll start with Jailton Almeida. He's 32 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach. Lewis, 38 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach. Almeida, 6 years younger, same height, and then same reach. Almeida is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He beat Danilo Marquez by knockout. He submitted Parker Porter and the pleasure man Anton Turkalj. He knocked out the very handsome Shamil Abdurakhimov, and then he submitted Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the first round. As far as Derrick Lewis, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Chris Daukaus. Knockout loss to Taito Ivasa and Sergey Pavlovich. He got submitted by a vampire first round there by Sergey Spivak. And then he knocked out Marcos Rogério de Lima in the first round, like the first 20 seconds of the fight. So, yeah, it seems like a pretty easy matchup here for Jailton Almeida. I don't think it was the best choice for Derrick Lewis to take this fight because prior to the De Lima fight, Derrick Lewis was 1-4 in his last 5 fights. He really needed to beat De Lima in that fight, and he did it in spectacular fashion. Now he's taking on, one of the hottest prospects here in the heavyweight division. Almeida's a guy that did fight at light heavyweight on the Contender Series. He weighed in at like 203. And then eventually moved up to fight Parker Porter at heavyweight, and he's stuck there ever since. And I kind of have a feeling this is going to be his weight class. It looks like he's put on some muscle mass, some weight the last couple fights. He's now weighing in around like 230 something at this point. Maybe we'll see an even heavier Jailton Almeida at this point. But I mean, it's a trash matchup for Derrick Lewis. But how many times do we say that, Weezy? How many times do we say this is a trash matchup for Derrick Lewis? I think I've said that probably in the majority of his fights in his career. But no, this one is rough, though. I mean, Derrick Lewis on paper, 50% takedown defense. And, he always has that, get up game where he just gets up, no technique whatsoever. And it works. It works against guys like Blagoy Ivanov and Ilir Latifi, but it also doesn't work against guys like DC and guys like Sergey Pavlovich. And I kind of have a feeling Almeida makes this look pretty easy. But he's going to have to really mind his P's and Q's in the first couple seconds of the fight. We know what's going to happen. Almeida is going to go for a takedown within the first 10 to 15 seconds. And if he gets it, I mean, that's probably a wrap. I mean, Derrick Lewis has no ground game off his back. And having no ground game off your back seems like a recipe for disaster against this guy, Jailton Almeida. Almeida is going to be able to get into dominant positions very easily, mount, side control, whatever he wants, take in the back. And he probably finishes Lewis within the first round here. But Lewis is going to be dangerous while this fight is standing. I just have a feeling it's not going to be standing for too long. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this matchup? I think Jailton Almeida is currently sitting as the second biggest favorite on the card.
Yeah, I mean, as he should be. He's a special fighter. I wish we got to see him fight more. And he doesn't even need to move up to heavyweight. But I think bottom line was that nobody was going to fight him at light heavyweight. This guy was coming in weighing 202 pounds for these light heavyweight fights. He was coming in way underweight. So it's bizarre to see Jailton moving up. But heavyweight is such a low skill division that somebody as skilled as Jailton Almeida and as conditioned as Jailton Almeida is in these grappling exchanges is just going to be able to absolutely dominate up there. His wrestling is really good, and his Brazilian jiu-jitsu is even better. And he's got the size to do just fine at this division. Derrick Lewis is a much bigger man, but both these guys are 6'3" with a 79-inch reach. So, one guy is just built differently than the other guy. Yeah, Lewis is going to be very live when this fight is on the feet for however long it stays on the feet. But if you want to look at the numbers, Brady, they're telling you that Jailton Almeida fights don't stay on the feet for very long. His fights take place in control time positions 93.67% of the time. And 100% of that 93.67% is Jailton Almeida controlling his opponents, not the other way around. So Derrick Lewis took this fight on short notice. He's got a new contract, and a new contract that, frankly, is going to pay him a ton of money to show up for fights, kind of like what we've seen Jessica Andrade doing lately. So, what I think Derrick Lewis probably approaches this fight the exact same way that he approached the Rogerio de Lima fight. I'm going to come out there. I'm going to try to knock you out with the very first thing that I throw, and it's probably going to be with me getting a running start. So Jailton better mind his P's and Q's for the first 5 seconds of this fight, because Derrick Lewis is going to bring hell. And if he doesn't do it accurately, he's probably going to wind up tripping, falling, and then Jailton Almeida is going to get on top of him and finish the fight because he's got phenomenal jiu-jitsu. He'll get to Derrick's back and he'll choke him out. So, yeah, -3. Can I interest you in -350 for the under 1.5, Brady?
That has to be one of the chalkiest unders I've ever seen in my life.
Have we ever seen anything like that? Think about it. -350 for an under 1.5, because we say that every week now. Like, when have we ever seen -700 for Garam Kutateladze? And then like the next week, somebody even worse is -800. So we've been seeing these lines are obviously getting a lot sharper, but -350 is where it opened and where it stayed. So it's hilarious. Like, they opened it at like basically an unbettable price, but the under still isn't bettable enough to have moved the line. Like, can you imagine betting an over 1.5 in a Jailton Almeida versus Derrick Lewis fight? You wouldn't be able to watch it.
You wouldn't have time to watch. I mean, the fight's probably not going to last that long.
Not even, yeah.
So the McKinney, Brandon Murat under was actually -385.
Wow. Okay. All right. So we have seen a line that bad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but it's still Sunday, so we could still maybe get some money on this under 1.5 rounds there. But yeah, I don't really see. I don't know. I don't really see a way of playing this fight. I don't want to lay this price tag on Almeida. I guess you could look at the props, but his round one props can be like what, -250, -200.
Yeah, because the money line is -500, and if they're saying that with a -350 under 1.5, they're basically telling you this thing finishes under 7.5 minutes almost 80% of the time, 78, 79% of the time. So, yeah, I mean, these lines are going to be juiced to the tits. It's going to be hard to make money on this fight unless Derrick Lewis wins. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And Rudy's saying under 2.5 minutes easy. You want to hear a fun fact, Weezy?
What's that?
All 5 of Almeida's wins have went over 2.5 minutes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, Derrick Lewis might be showing up for a check here, though. So it could be him like via knockout, like he got against Marcos. Because if I were him, that's what I would do. I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to come out there and try to kick the shit out of this guy in the first 10 seconds And if I fall to the ground and he winds up on top of me, I'm just going to give him my neck, tap out, and go home with a fat check.
Oh, yeah.
You know, more money than you and I are going to make this week. I'll tell you that right now.
100%. He is getting paid, that is for sure. But what a tough matchup for Derrick Lewis. But yeah, I'm curious to see where you always got to take a look at like the Derrick Lewis knockout props, the Derrick Lewis first round knockout, because that's how he wins. And I have a feeling it's going to be pretty juicy with him being just a massive dog here.
Yeah, it might be worth a tenth of a unit or a quarter unit, you know, and just hope that, like I say, you know, if Jailton wins this fight, it's kind of, you know, you're not going to make a lot of money on it. You're going to be laying juice on almost every single prop that has a Jailton Almeida hook next to it. So yeah, it's going to be hard to make money unless Derrick finds another spectacular knockout, and he tends to do it, Brady, when we don't think he's going to do it. Yeah.
All the time. It happens a lot. So many times. But yeah, looking forward to this main event and this card overall. Weezy, we went through it all 13 fights. We are still, did they say if they're going to get a replacement for what's his face?
For Lucas Alexander.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything yet, but what's weird is like they still haven't taken that fight off of any books. It's still there. Like you could bet it right now on Bet Online.
That's weird.
You know, and it's still on UFCstats.com. That's still listed as the third fight of the night. Oh no, it looks like they finally did take it off of Bet Online. But yeah, so I don't know what they're doing with Lucas Alexander, because he's a South Florida guy. So it might not be as easy for them to just find somebody that wants to go to Brazil, you know, to fight him.
Yeah, I don't know. But Onama's definitely out. He confirmed it himself, unless somebody made it like a fake David Onama account and said he was
got a whole ton of followers. You know,
you never know. But yeah, guys, thank you all for hanging out. Weezy, final thoughts on this card, and then your plans for some UFC Sao Paulo content.
Dude, I think the matchmaking on this card is phenomenal. Some great striker versus grappler matchups like Vieira versus Petrosyan, Lewis versus Almeida. You got the veteran versus the prospect matchups here in Bonfim versus Dalby, Bonfim versus Pichel, Hill versus Gomez. You got a banger like Ribovics versus Brener, which is just perfect matchmaking. I love this card. I think the crowd's going to be going nuts. Super fun fights here. And as far as content this week, just a tip, Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time. And then Wednesday, Pub Sports Radio, 8 o'clock Central Time for the DFS show with Brady, Monk, and Gordo. And I'll be going live on my channel, 10 o'clock Central Time on Wednesday night to answer any questions that you have about these fighters, about these fights, about any statistics or analytics. What we do every Wednesday night on my channel, Brady, Ask Weezy. The only thing left to do, stack cashed tickets like flapjacks for UFC Sao Paulo. I'm looking forward to this card, and I'm looking to get back on a winning streak this week. Down 0.18 units last week.
It's not bad. Well, 2 weeks ago at this point.
Would have rather been up 0.18, but oh well.
Oh well, we'll get it back this week. It's a good card. I don't have any bets yet, but there are a lot of spots I'm looking at. I did post a main event prediction video that is on my channel right now, DFS by the numbers, and then I'll be posting my full card prediction video tomorrow. I have all 13 fights taped, ready to go. Just have to record and get that out of there. And then, like Weezy said, we'll be back on Wednesday, Pub Sports Radio. And then lastly, leave a like on your way out. Subscribe here to the channel. Check out the Pub Sports Radio Pick'ems contest, and we'll see you guys very soon. See you guys later.